constantly shifting through the time-space continuum, Metron's three disciples observe the universe from the Mobius Couch.
Oh, I don't need, I can't stand no Minute Man. I don't want no Minute Man. Oh, here's your chance to be a man. Take my hand, understand. I don't want no Minute Mobius Couch. People of the world, welcome to the Mobius Couch, a time-space interdimensional vehicle from which your three hosts take to task the late-stage capitalist propaganda apparatus that is the right-wing lamestream media. Today, we're going to talk about why the recent Fed interest rate hikes are an institutional ploy to keep Americans poor and subservient to their wealthy Republican ruling class, which uses farcical debt ceiling negotiations to divert our attention away from our dying planet Earth. But first,
that's not what we're talking about.
It's exactly what we're talking about.
No, that's not what the podcast is about.
It's not?
No, it's about Quicksilver. It's about Pietro. About.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. What have I done?
I don't
sorry.
know.
I thought we were criticizing the establishment. That's
no, I mean we are through the Ultimates, but that's what we're talking about. The Ultimates too, okay. That is.
I thought we were here to burn down the status quo and start over. But
I liked it.
None of that matters, because what we're actually here to talk about on the Mobius Couch is The Ultimates 2.
That was published somewhere between the years of 04 and 07, depending on how long you were waiting for your comic book.
Depending on which issues you were waiting for.
Yeah.
It took a long time. So if you haven't already, we have another episode on Ultimates 2 Part 1, which you should listen to. This is about Ultimates 2 Part 2. So we're going to cover issues 8 through 13.
Yep.
Introductions. I'm Alessandro. Hello, everybody.
Oh, hey, Al.
And joining me are, of course, Joe.
Hello.
And Patrick.
Hello.
Okay.
This is Patrick.
Not awkward at all.
I'm Patrick.
Yeah.
This is Patrick's voice you're hearing. Wait, no, this is Joe's voice you're hearing.
It will never not be awkward. It's always going to be awkward.
Yeah, I know.
It's
one of those things where it's like, all right. It's always going to be awkward. It's a fucking weird thing to do.
We've known each other for 30 years, but sure, it'll be.
We're not saying hello to us. We're saying hello to the viewers and/or listeners.
Ultimates 2. Mark Millar, Bryan Hitch. So we're going to start with Part 2. Again, Part 1. Listen to that podcast. You can get our takes and all that on this. Part 2 is the climax, the conclusion, the denouement, the climax and the denouement of the Ultimates 2.
I want to read something from Bryan Hitch in the extras at the back of my hardcover here.
Okay.
And they're discussing how cool it was that they could criticize and like discuss American policies very quickly, like with a quick turnaround, whereas like a film or something would take like a year or two to make, and then by the time that message is getting out there, it's like kind of old sort of thing. So they're saying it's like sort of weird having a comic book where you can, comment on socially comment on things relatively quickly, like in the now, like almost having a newspaper sort of. And he goes, Mark Millar says, Hollywood is just touching on stuff like this now, 3 years later, so obviously this is post them making the comic. And that makes me very proud of comics, how immediate it can be. It's like being a newspaper cartoonist. We don't have a legal department watching over us. And Bryan Hitch said, I was saying this to a large table of Hollywood types only the other day. Comics are so wonderfully immediate. Even the late ones that don't arrive immediately. in a way that movies can't be. We could get a book out in 2 months, start to finish. Really, we could. We didn't, but we could. whereas a movie is anything from 2 to 3 years. Advantage us, I think. Which I just thought was funny that he was like personally recognizing how horrible he was at getting books out on time.
Yeah, because I was going to mention the irony of Bryan Hitch talking about how immediate comics were, but I liked how he addressed
He's like, well, not us. I mean, we could, but we didn't. But we could. But other people, other creators. I just want to
emphasize issue 7. So our last episode ended with issue 7. That came out July 20th, 2005. Mm-hmm. Issue 8 came out September 21st, 2005. So it's like 2 months. So not too big of a deal.
So not horrible.
Issue 9 came out December 7th, 2005. So that was about 2.5 months in between 8 and 9. Okay.
Yeah.
Issue 10 came out March 1st, 2006. So that's
So
3 months.
So 3-ish months. Yeah.
Issue 11 came out June 12th, 2006. So that's about 3.5 months since issue
still
10.
around 3 months.
Okay.
range.
Issue 12 came out September 27th, 2006. So that's another 3-month wait. Issue 13 came out May 16th, 2007. 8 months after issue 12. And to really highlight how fucking weird this is that there was an Ultimates 2 annual that takes place after this storyline. And that came out August 23rd, 2006. So there were still issues 12 and 13 to be released of this storyline, and they released an annual.
So continuity-wise, you were reading something that came after 12 and
Yes,
13,
yeah.
but you were reading it like months and months before, almost half a year, basically.
Yeah, like the first 7 issues kind of came out month by month, relatively like a normal comic book.
Pretty
but
close.
The last 7 or 8 issues, it took about a year and a half for 6 issues to come out.
I mean, 13's, is it big? Or is it just regular size?
I think it's big.
But also there's the
an
8-page spread.
Yeah, 8-page spread.
Don't talk to me about multi-page spreads, because that should be the name of the.
You know what's so
Well, before we started recording, and I know we did our overall takes kind of like last episode, but me and Al were just touching on like how much we enjoyed Ultimates 2 as overall. But like I think that like colored how, and we were kind of comparing it to Ultimates 1, which is not all that great and doesn't hold up that well. I mean, it's still drawn beautifully, and there's still some good things in that. And it establishes all the characters, and a lot of the things they're dealing with in Ultimates 2 happen in Ultimates 1. So, I mean, it's sort of necessary to read, I guess. But in terms of which is the better volume, like, Ultimates 2 is hands down better than the first, volume. But, like, and I think that's what colored my memory of the first volume, maybe? Like, that's why I was like, I can't wait to read Ultimates 1, because I was like, because my memory is of the more recent Ultimates 2, obviously.
Yeah.
But, yeah, man, I really enjoyed getting to the end of Ultimates 2 again. I had completely forgotten about all like Thor's like Norse gods coming down, Vikings, and coming down to like the Rainbow Road to fight and all the demons and all that stuff. Like I just forgot all of that stuff. Like I completely forgot about that. I just thought they fought a superhero team, a bad guy team.
Yeah, there's a lot. I gotten Tony Stark was a garbage human being.
I mean, he is and he isn't. I
he's
agree and
pretty
disagree.
bad. I don't know. He's pretty bad in this.
My big point that I'll reiterate a lot throughout this episode is that the way I read this in 2005 to 2007, way different from the way I read it in 2023.
100%.
Like, I mean, I can remember cheering for the Ultimates, like when they were turning things around and taking the bad guys down. And then now there's some cringy parts, especially with Tony. There's some things that happen with Tony that's just fucking weird, man.
What is the aside from their bank account? What's the difference between Hank and Tony?
He didn't beat his wife.
Beat his wife, yeah,
and almost kill her.
Tony didn't. Well, okay, Tony beat his fiance. Yeah, I guess that's not his wife.
And we'll get to that.
The one that tried to murder him. Yeah,
okay, we'll get to that. I was still fairly uncomfortable with how violently he dealt with that.
But yes, Al, I do agree. We'll talk about it when we get there.
She's an assassin. I don't think he dealt with it strongly enough.
We'll get to that.
We'll talk about it. All
right, we'll talk about that. But so hold on. So the only thing I would say, and maybe I'll rescind all of this after your arguments, but like, I feel like Tony, to me, in this, is just 100% disconnected with the rest of humanity. Like, it's not like he's a bad person. He just doesn't give a fuck about anybody else but himself. Like, and that doesn't make him, like, horrible. It's just narcissistic.
He's bad, though. He's
a bad.
But he's still doing things to help people.
He embezzled hundreds of billions from the government.
That's what it is. That's the part I missed. The first like 18 times I read this back 20 years ago.
Yeah.
He embezzled like $100 billion from the government, meaning taxpayer money. He stole like $100 billion worth of taxpayer money to do what with? I guess to build that spaceship.
He's a really savvy businessman.
But this wasn't like, oh, I'm going to charge the government more. This was like Natasha uncovered legit criminal embezzlement of money that he did. And And this is supposed to be one of our heroes.
Sounds like it wouldn't hold up in court because he's really rich and has a lot of lawyers. You know.
Well, okay, that's true. His lawyers are probably better than the government's, honestly.
He's also got a spaceship above Earth with giant lasers on it, actual space lasers.
I know.
Yeah. All right, we're getting ahead. All right, we'll get to Tony in a minute. Let's.
All right, we'll get to Tony in a minute. But I still love him.
Well, just to recap, issue 7 ends with
he's
Hawkeye's
horrible.
family being murdered.
Let me read you a little bit about what Mark Millar said about kids dying. Oh God, there's the kids dying. People never saw that one coming, did they? I remember that's when the book just kicked into high gear and the readers were going nuts. And the momentum was going really well here, too. We'd had about 7 issues out in 9 months at that point. So a lot of people were talking about between issues. The traitor thing worked well as it got very nasty very quickly. I loved Hawkeye. He could have had a whole book to himself if done right. Why are the conservative characters the most fun to write? Why is Hawkeye conservative? That's weird. Anyway,
I think maybe he means conservative in the sense like his abilities.
No, he means like just he's a military dude. He's very conservative. I mean, he wrote him that way, but I think he literally means he's part of the establishment. Bryan Hitch says, I don't know, because politically they are dull as dirty ditch water. I'd always love to do more Hawkeye. I think he would have beaten the Punisher for popularity too. And I'd always be up for more Hawkeye. Then Mark Millar said, Hawkeye is da bomb, bitches. Did you really just say that out loud? Yes, and I apologize. Yeah, he certainly has an interesting perspective, that's for sure. I think he was being brutally honest with America's fucking bullshit, and he was writing about it. And that's what he was shocked he got away with it.
This comic is spot on about, because this was happening in the 2005 to 7 range.
Yeah, early 2000s.
Right at the height of invading Iraq for no reason.
Well, and that's, I guess this is kind of a macro point, but just in general, I can just remember being very much on the Ultimates side throughout this entire run, being like, yeah, get their weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, go America. And reading it now, I'm like, a lot.
Those parts actually gave me unease. I could sense. I had maybe a slightly more, realistic adult grown up.
Honestly,
I'm only a few years older than you guys, but I guess I had a slightly different perspective on it. But I was incredibly naive about Captain America, and the way we discussed him last time, and last episode, but also in this, as you see. I remember being 100% on his side when I read this, being like, how dare you cheat on Captain America? He's the most wholesome guy in the world, kind of that mentality of he can do no wrong, kind of thing.
Well, I think the comic does a good job though of, it's not quite so clear as America's evil or whatever, because if you look at it,
I don't think so. Yeah.
Because Captain Middle East later talks about how, you invaded this poor country and, attacked our nuclear program for no reason. But then they are removing missiles from it. So it's not really just a nuclear program for energy. There clearly are weapons there. So I feel like the comic does a little bit of a good job of, they definitely paint kind of that.
At least quote unquote Nick Fury is maybe using them for the right reasons. But if someone else was in charge, not necessarily maybe. Is that what?
It's definitely over. They definitely are displaying American overreach and world
100%.
Overreach. But they do a good job of leaving enough of it. Well, there are weapons there at base. So,
right. Yeah.
We can pick all this up later, but let's get into these issues. All right. So issue 8, born on the 4th of July, which is a Tom Cruise movie. A lot of film reference. Did anybody catch I think it was the first or second issue, there was a Richard Gere Shall We Dance reference.
I didn't catch that.
I don't know the reference.
Well,
which is crazy because I'm a total gearhead.
Well, it was the Wasp and Steve Rogers were talking about a movie they saw, and the Wasp mentioned oh, I thought the original Japanese version was better. Yes. And they were talking about Shall We Dance because that was based on a Japanese film and starred Richard Gere and Jennifer Lopez. And anyway, and Born on the 4th of July is another movie reference. But we start at Cap's apartment. And okay, I want to talk about Cap real quick because what I respect about this issue is last podcast for issues 1 through 7, We spent a lot of time talking about Cap is scary. He's an implied domestic abuser. Watch out, Janet, don't make him mad. That kind of thing.
Just like in terms of his presence that I don't think he's even aware of.
Right. Okay. But the point I wanted to make is in this issue, what I appreciated how Millar sort of turns it on its head in this issue, where we see Captain America actually be the vulnerable, weak one, and not the scary, gaslighting, watch out one. And we see a man who isn't like threatening and dangerous and a murder risk at all times, but instead we see someone who is just completely unhinged, like from his time. Like this is a I don't have superpowers Steve Rogers that's having this conversation with her. Yeah, this is
like
a
he's
Steve
hurt
Rogers.
Emotionally, and he's withdrawn in on himself. He's looking over the balcony, drinking his coffee or whatever the hell's in that mug. But you know what I mean? Like it's just and he literally just runs away after the argument.
Yeah, when Janet confronts him, he runs away. But again, the Steve Rogers we get in this, as a contrast to the first 7 issues, the one we see in this really highlights the vulnerability and weakness of Captain America, which I thought was a good turn on the character rather than just keeping him be this like scary Hulk.
You know what? Honestly, that might be why. So last episode, I had read all the way to the end. And I think that's why I was having a hard time seeing your perspective last episode. And I was like, "What? Are you sure?" I was like, "I guess it is." Yeah, and I was like agreeing, but I was like, "I guess so. I don't really feel that way." But I had already read this issue, so like maybe that had like already shifted my mind a little bit, you know.
But like in previous issues, for example, with his old friends, in the previous issues we get it from Janet's point of view. So it just seems like
and she's like annoyed she's hanging out with old people.
Yeah, and Steve is like inflexibly, we have to hang out with them and I'm going to make you do what I want because I'm the man and do it. In this issue instead, we just see like he doesn't have another the only people in this world he can relate to are these 2 90-year-olds. Like he does not have a life in this world, and we see that kind of side of him.
This is an adorable MCU Cap with like a notebook of like movies he missed while he was gone, you know, or culture rather, you know, just but like this is a guy that like wants and misses the time that he lived in, and he's not like looking to fill and catch up and fill his time with like let me catch up to modern life. Like he's like, I don't want any of this. I want to be back where I was. Like he just wants what he once had, like, you know, like, or like he just wants to not be in our time. He wants to live
and this
with
is
his
all,
friends.
The visual emphasis of all of this theme is at the end of this issue, as he's fighting for his life, he is doing that at his own gravestone. And so I think that's like a very visual representation of the theme we've been talking about. This is a man who is dead. He does not have a life. He should not be here.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, and that climactic fight where he's trying to survive and free himself is in front of his own memorial statue in his headstone.
Yeah.
I thought that was a very powerful setting for that fight.
The scene that sets that up, or like right before that, is like heartbreak. I mean, he's just at Bucky's house and he's talking to his. I mean, you have to imagine Bucky has reached this old age. He fought in World War II long after Cap was like presumed dead and frozen. Like he's had a whole life. He's a curmudgeon-y old man, you know, like that generation of like, we don't display feelings because I'm a man, you know, kind of thing. Yeah. And Cap is like telling him about these emotional problems. Yeah. And he's like, hell, I don't know anybody else in Bucky. I don't even have other friends, you know, and he's starting to cry. And like Bucky's wife is on the inside, you know, just going, just give him a hug, you silly old fool, you know, kind of thing. And that adorable picture of that old man, like hugging him on the porch is like heartbreaking. And you're just it just kind of sets in like how displaced he is. He doesn't feel at home anywhere.
Well, let's go back to the beginning. The issue starts with Cap. He's mad at Janet because he knows Janet has been seeing Hank Pym on the side, and they have this argument about it. And it does a good job of displaying just the fact that he came from a different time period, and the cultural norms with a relationship between a man and a woman were different from when he was a younger person versus the relationship he is in with Janet. But man, when Cap accuses Janet of sleeping with Hank and she says, I didn't do that, and he does it again, and Janet goes, I already told you I didn't sleep with him. And then she pauses and thinks about it for a minute, and then she goes, not yet anyway. And the next panel is just like dead silence, and you can just see the devastation on Cap's face.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, like he doesn't know what to do with that. Like no woman has ever spoken to him like that before. Like that.
It's not even that no woman has ever spoken. I think it's like
no woman has ever spoken to him like that before.
Well, yeah, I know, but I mean, like he's only loved one other woman. You know, like to him, he's like the kind of guy that like it's not like he's had 20 other women between Peggy Carter and her. You know, I don't.
It's like meaningless sex wasn't
a thing. Maybe so like when he's in a relationship, it's like serious. Yeah. So to him, this is like a huge betrayal. Whereas like to somebody in modern times, you're just like, oh, you're sleeping with your ex-boyfriend or your ex-husband. Fuck you, we're done. You know, kind of thing. And you like.
It's like a relatively quick scene, but like Janet has in this scene, Janet has more power than Cap does. Like
I think that's sort of what I was trying to touch on last time when she's like yelling at him and she's like, "What are you even talking about? You hardly even speak to me. We just sit there and read your newspaper every night, like and play your old stupid Bing Crosby records." You know, like kind of thing. Like she's yelling at Captain America. Like she's standing up to him and yelling at him. I never felt like she was, I don't know, or that she felt as if he could beat her at any moment in time, or even would, maybe. I don't know. There's like a certain like a level of her standing up to him that like speaks to her inner strength and her ability to like be like, oh fuck you, no, that would he'd never take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's just a very, for me, just reading it again. It's a quick scene. It's like 3 or 4 pages long, but you kind of understood how complex their relationship is, and that they are just. In general, is not a good match for each other at all.
And they and the weird thing is that they keep keeping it up. Like even after this like breakup, and then he's like shot with all the darts, and he's a traitor or whatever was going on. At the very end, he's like, "Get your hands off my girlfriend." I'm like, "You're still feeling like you're together with her? Like what? Like." That was a little weird for me, you know. Like I felt that, like that stood out to me.
I feel like that was like a heat of the moment type thing.
Maybe, yeah, and I mean she's there at the time freeing him, so like maybe that's
also because I feel like we can get to it, but when she releases him, he's been released for like 5 minutes, and he just lets the schizoid man beat the shit out of her before he's like, "Oh, actually, I could have stopped you at any moment. I just chose."
Well, I mean, I think he's like recovering because they'd been torturing him. But okay,
I mean, I think that's one of those.
All right, let's analyze it.
No, I think it's one of those things where the writer framed it that way because it's like a cool twist. But if you think about it logically, why did you just let Janet get beat up for 2 minutes?
He didn't actually sit there. Yeah.
But it's cooler to say. Yeah, but it's more exciting to say, oh, actually, we have the upper hand. And now,
well, because I will say, when I first read this, I did think that they had stopped her from releasing him, so it was like a little bit of a twist for me. But reading it on the second time, being like, he's been released for 5 minutes and he just let all that happen.
Well, also, it's just a line of dialogue from Jan. I mean, was it 5 minutes or was it, 37 seconds? Like, she just meant, I already did it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the point you're trying to. I mean, who knows how how accurate that timeline is.
Another thing we talked about last time that I want to bring up again is in this fight amongst the tombstones, he does a full split.
Yeah, total Chun-Li helicopter.
Captain America does another full split.
I just love the sheer amount of tranquilizer darts that are sticking out of his body as he continues to beat the shit out of everyone that's trying to take him down. It makes me very happy. Can you just imagine, like just like 100 darts hitting your body, and you're like, fuck you, and you're still fighting? It's fucking awesome. I mean, they even like get him down at a certain point, and he keeps going after the split kick, and then they shoot him with more. He's like, how many darts? How many darts has he been shot with?
Also, I don't know if we mentioned this plot-wise, but this is all part of like Loki's manipulation, and so S.H.I.E.L.D. thinks that Steve Rogers killed Hawkeye, so that's why they're going after him.
Oh, that is a good note to hit. We should probably
just wanted to make sure we made that clear.
That's the reason they're attacking him. Also, there's a really well done, subtle introduction of like the militarization of all the Ultimates characters. Like, there's a bunch of random Iron Man suits floating around. There's a bunch of like random super soldier guys that are kind of like Cap Light, like Bud Light versions of Cap, kind of thing. There's a bunch of fake giant men like that, can go beyond what Hank Pym can do. Like, they're just taking every version of the Ultimates that they have and using their powers, even if it's like a shitty version of it. Like Captain America's 100, they're on a 10 level power level or whatever. But there's 100 of them. So like, yeah, I'll take 100 Captain Americas that are at a 10 versus 100, kind of thing.
But that's the thing that's cool about it, though, is, I mean, I guess it's not cool, but I appreciate the commentary on, I mean, that's what the military would do. Like, they wouldn't just rely on these 5 people to be their hero.
100%.
I mean, they would be like, oh, 100%. Let's make more of you.
They'd be like, hey, we can't make another Captain America, but we can make Captain America at 50%.
Right. And
times
Tony Stark,
1,000.
Stark, here's a government contract. Make us more Iron Man suits.
Yeah, maybe it's not as good as your Iron Man suit, but make us some bulky robot suits that can fly around and do some shit, kind of thing.
Well, and that's like one of the big points of contention with the villain in quotes team, the Liberators, which are basically alternate versions of the Ultimates, is that America keeps making super soldiers and the other countries are like, stop doing that. Like, they're nuclear. They're basically right. Yes, exactly. They're taking
we touched on it.
Emphasis off of that and putting it on mass producing superheroes for one country while other countries don't get to do that.
Yeah, well, we touched about this. We touched on this last time. How Millar and Hitch are equating superheroes with armaments, basically, like a nation's arsenal of mega weapons is their superheroes in this Ultimate Universe. Which, all right, issue 9,
Grand Theft America.
Theft America. That's not a reference to a film, just to Grand Theft, but instead of Auto. It's in America. So here we find out that Hawkeye is alive and getting tortured.
I do like how horrifyingly, like, you are like, oh my god, he's alive, and now they're just telling him how they murdered his family, and it's horrible. I mean, also, like, it's great setup for later, but
And Bryan Hitch continues to not know how to draw a buzz cut.
No,
he never got it right.
I just want to continue to say that is a struggle Bryan Hitch is still fighting against.
I mean, if you're going to draw every individual hair, which I applaud, you need about 8 billion more of them.
Yeah.
There's not enough. It's not enough.
Also, I have a quick
He looks
question.
like Charlie Brown. You might as well just draw the swirl on his head. They called it a day.
When they're torturing Hawkeye, it says location unknown, but then were they torturing Hawkeye like directly underneath the White House? Is that?
Yeah, I think so, because he was right there. Yeah.
And I hate to jump back real quick to issue 8, but I just want to say I love Pietro. Ultimate Quicksilver is my favorite thing ever. And there's a scene where Natasha, she's trying on wedding dresses and she's bitching about how Janet didn't show up and she can't rely on Wanda. And Pietro just says, "Listen to Natasha, Wanda. Is that pre-wedding nerves, or has she simply realized how ridiculous her thick Russian ankles look in that puffball?"
Yeah, Quicksilver's the best. He has a lot of good moments we'll get to, but back to 9.
Yeah, we'll get to more Quicksilver.
So Jarvis throws some more barbs at Natasha, and Tony continues to just be an irresponsible drunk. But then I want to mention this Pietro moment, because this is a moment when I was like, yes, thank you, Quicksilver. There's a scene at Nick Fury's office where Pietro just mentions, like, does anybody else think it's weird that, like, we just all fought Thor and now Captain America is suddenly
a traitor?
evil,
like, doesn't everyone think that's a little strange? Yeah. Is anyone else picking up on the subtle movements of what's going on right now?
Yeah. So I appreciate Pietro's, like, sort of healthy degree of suspicion about what's going on. I just wanted to say appreciate that.
And they kind of just wave. No one even responds to what he says. They just keep talking.
Yeah, they're all like basically ignoring him, which is so frustrating.
Pretty immediately,
he's clearly so knowledgeable about fashion, about
and conspiracy, and about conspiracy. But very soon, so we get
possibly
a really
sex
cool
with
scene.
Your sister. I don't know.
And this goes back to the kind of, like, we talked last time about the kind of cinematic art and panel construction going on. But we immediately get a scene where, like, they just go, oh, what happened to the cameras and the power? And then suddenly there's a shadow and they look up and all the helicarriers are tumbling.
Yeah, it's fantastic really in the way that
really well done.
How else do you draw a bunch of gigantic helicarriers flying through the air at weird angles, about to smash into a building, and like, man, it's great. First of all, they're just all up on their ends, and then you get the quick panel of like, oh, there's dudes behind it pushing it, Superman style. That's insane. And then it just cuts right back to inside the building, and they're like, oh shit, we're all gonna die. Like, they all just went, oh, that's it, we're done.
Speaking of we're all gonna die, I want to bring our attention to one panel. Mm-hmm. When the helicarriers fall down, there's a panel of Betty and Nick holding hands.
Yeah, we texted about this. Yeah,
they're fucking. They're fucking.
I disagree.
I think they're probably. I think they're fucking, and there's not much emotion about it. I think it's like strictly sex, and this is like that one moment where they're about to die, and it's kind of like, let's acknowledge that we have something going on, but not.
I think it's basically what you're saying, but it hasn't happened yet.
No,
that's the impression I
agree
get.
With Patrick.
It's like they have a thing, but it's not done, or it hasn't reached any level of anything yet. And then suddenly, when they're about to die, they're like, "Oh fuck, we love each other."
Oh, well, that's what I think. I think that they're
definitely
fucking
fucked,
and they're like, all it is sex. We're not emotionally attached, and they're both lying to themselves. And right when they're about to die, they're like, let's acknowledge the fact that we care about each other. We're both horrible humans, and we deserve each other because we're terrible pieces of shit.
Listen. So. Do you think Nick Fury's a piece of shit in this?
Yes, he deserves it. Yes, he's awful.
Oh, he's awful. Oh my god, he is awful.
Sometimes I just ask questions and see what you can say.
Maria Hill is a better director of S.H.I.E.L.D. than
100%.
This asshole. Now, Samuel Jackson in the MCU, he had his shit together. He had his shit together.
No, this Nick Fury is incompetent. Yeah, this Nick Fury is incompetent.
He seems like he's just flying out of the seat of his pants a lot, doesn't he? He has a
But that's not what I want out of the head of
it's not. It's not what you want out of that. Yeah. It's absolutely not.
Also,
anyway, helicarrier smashed through the whole building. The entire thing comes crumbling down.
Nick Fury is holding Betty's hand with the arm he's about to lose, FYI.
Oh, that's adorable.
A little poetic point there.
Ultimates, one episode, we talked about how the Ultimates like really was the foundation of the MCU, and the helicarriers falling from the sky, that happens in Winter Soldier.
Yeah, there's Winter Soldier. Yeah, there's a lot of Captain America Winter Soldier in this. There's a lot, or just like hints of, or
Yeah, I mean, the Triskelion in this is in New York, but like the building structure is basically what they use.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah,
even though it's in DC. Yeah. And again, to Bryan Hitch's art, like the scenes of the stuff crashing down is really like, it feels epic.
I really love. I know this is a weird like bravo moment, but like he has this weird ability to draw rubble and actually make it look like it's layers upon layers upon layers of like construction and drywall and metal and crap, like laying all on top of itself. And I'm like, I don't understand, like, just like the skeleton of like the building is there, all the glass is obviously broken, but like you can see like sort of the arch of like what was part of the building, and then there's helicarriers all amidst it, and then there's a shitload of smoke, as there would be in real life. But like,
even this
again,
this
just like
panel,
photorealism in his artwork is out of control. Like it's
and
it's insane.
This full
that one. That's what I'm talking about.
Like after the event page of
it's crazy.
A third of the page is just smoke, and emerging from the smoke, you see all the rubble. It's really this was
again,
A+,
and then we cut to like a super close up of Tony and Natasha's tongues going into each other's mouths, and it looks good. It looks real. Good job.
I just want to harp a little bit more on this whole like MCU thing, just because recently DC announced their slate, and The Authority is one of them. And Bryan Hitch tweeted saying, like, I basically had no heads up they were adapting The Authority, which I helped create, into a fucking movie.
But he doesn't own the IP, right?
Well, right, because anything you made underneath the banner of DC or Wildstorm or Marvel is
a Hollywood producer
isn't
going to give a shit. Yeah,
but it's just like you just, and we've talked about it on other episodes, but it's like, why do these guys have to even fight for a credit? Like, they should be getting a little bit of money. Give them a little bit of money. Like, when you learn how little money most of these comic book writers and artists actually have. You assume they're wealthy people, but they are not. We talked about Porter.
Howard Porter.
Yeah. We talked about Howard Porter, how he had to work as a truck driver when he couldn't do art anymore.
Yeah, he had to sell blowjobs under the bridge. Yeah, that was the only way he could make it work.
But throw these guys just a little bit of money,
or just give them some credits. Just a little credit.
Well, I probably the money would be more worth.
The money would be way more appreciated because you have a giant. Here's the thing. I think we touched on it on the Moon Knight. Maybe the Hawkeye, definitely the Hawkeye episodes where we talked about Disney Plus and the comic book. But they straight took the intro sequence of Hawkeye, Disney Plus, from the book, drawn by David Aja. And you're just like, why aren't you just saying hey, this is obviously inspired by this book run on these comic books. Let's just give them a producer credit or something so we can give them a couple $1,000 an episode. What is their budget? $1 jillion?
Yeah, but
throw them some money.
The entire show's brand.
Thank you for your artistic integrity and your creativity, and that we're stealing and using again and repurposing. Here's some cash.
Yeah, but it wasn't just the title. It wasn't the title sequence. The entire show's branding was that
the entire show. Yeah. Well, that was that. I mean, symbols. So
that wasn't created by Disney Plus. It was, the Fraction Aja run.
My point is, it's just these fucking movies make so much goddamn money.
The DC ones don't.
Well, they still make money though, don't they?
Here's the point: if you start throwing the money now, they'll be incentivized to keep creating comic books and making shit that you want to steal later on. The more you fucking dick them over now, the less they'll be inclined to be why am I even doing this? They're just gonna steal my shit later, and
Right.
Now we are getting into our hyper left wing podcast that we were building at the beginning. But look, companies don't care about you. They don't care about you if you're a human. They don't care if you're an artist or a writer, or they don't give a shit what you are. You mean nothing to them.
But they want you to keep making more.
And entertainment companies are no different. They're just about making money. They're not about spreading the wealth to whoever deserves it.
I'm not so that's the problem. We're not talking about spreading the wealth, so to speak. We're just talking about.
Yeah, you are. You're spreading the wealth from the two producers to the creators. That is spreading the wealth.
I suppose.
But I mean, just throwing them $100,000, that can be that is life changing. Throwing someone $100,000 out of the billions of dollars you make off these fucking movies.
Patrick, it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope. If you
you
give $100,000 to Bryan Hitch,
Bob Iger,
then how much do you have to give?
It's coming out of Iger's fucking paycheck. You know what I mean? We can't have that.
No, it won't. It is not coming out of Iger's paycheck. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, I know it's not.
They'll fire a couple thousand lower employees and make other employees take.
Anyway, we shouldn't spend too much time harping on this. I just want to say that rereading this and seeing, because we rewatch the Marvel movies a lot, it's just so obvious how much of it was pulled directly from comic books.
It was lifted from. I mean, Millar and Hitch should get half of all the MCU gross or whatever. It's all lifted. All these Avengers movies are lifted straight from their shit. I mean, if I was them, I would be pissed because it's
Yeah,
I know. I've said this before, probably way back at Ultimates 1 episode, but I'm sure I reiterated it last episode too. But they're solely responsible for making Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, comic book characters that at the time were very boring and not selling books, and just no one cared in the regular Marvel universe. And they took those characters and made them interesting again, and everyone gave a fuck suddenly. And they're this is what Captain America should be, and this is what Iron Man should be, and this is this they took these characters like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman of the Marvel universe, basically, and made them fun and interesting again, which boosted the normal Marvel comic books, let alone led to the MCU and all this stuff.
I mean,
they did so much work in this book to make the Marvel universe what it is today. It's not even fun. It's just beyond you couldn't even pay them enough money for it. Like, whatever you've earned is built off of the back of the Ultimates.
In 2003, if you asked like the average American who's Iron Man, they'd be maybe 40% would say like, I think that's an old-timey comic book character.
Yeah. No one gave a shit. It was all X-Men, it was all X-Books, and then no one cared about the regular superheroes. Like, the Avengers were nothing. They hadn't made like a regular Avengers with Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man on the team in ages. Like none of this existed. And with the Ultimate Universe, they were like, hey, let's make Captain America cool again. This was groundbreaking. Ultimates 1 was, rather. But, like, the idea that this isn't, like, constantly looked back on as, like, the greatest thing that basically relit a fire in the Marvel Universe, I have no idea why they don't just, like, suck these guys' dicks every day.
But even as a small detail, and I don't at all mean to imply that Sam Jackson owes them any money, like this should come from the studio. But I mean, for example, how much money has Sam Jackson made off these movies? Because he wouldn't have that job. If
Bryan Hitch hadn't said, I want to draw Sam Jackson as Nick Fury.
Literally drew Sam Jackson as Nick Fury, which then led him to be cast as that. Now, I obviously, I'm not saying Sam Jackson owes the money. I mean, the studio clearly does. But I mean... Even that, like, casting choice was made for them by the creators of this comic.
Yeah.
It was, like, already baked in.
How much do you love how quickly Jarvis gets a bullet through the brain? Because I think it's hilarious.
Going back to the comic, we go from the Triskelon being destroyed, carriers flying to Tony and Natasha having sex. And then Tony's like, we should probably go help people. And Natasha's like, no, let's not do that. And then Tony realizes she's the traitor and she pulls a gun on him. Earlier in this issue, Tony told Jarvis to make Natasha an ostrich egg. And I have 2 points to say because Jarvis says, oh, like I have nothing better to do than to run around after you all day. And I'm like, Jarvis, that's your fucking job, first of all.
It's his job.
Secondly, Al, back to your point, how Jarvis had like this weird... Like, his personality was very strange. And Tony has a line that says, I'm really too tired for your unique brand of misogyny today. And it was like, that's very kind of spot on to, I think, what you were getting at in the last issue. But I do love because he comes in right before Natasha shoots Jarvis's brains out. He says, I'm afraid we didn't have any ostrich eggs for breakfast, but I managed to find a quail's egg and a rather good magnifying glass. He's actually got a fucking magnifying glass on the tray.
On the dish.
So at least like he's still like he dies 2 seconds later. But like at least he went out with like one last fucking banger. No pun intended.
One Natasha note I want to make. Seeing her in bed, I don't think she has fat ankles. What was Pietro talking about?
I mean, I think he's just anyone that's not Wanda.
Yeah, maybe he
doesn't measure up.
Wanda, but I don't think Natasha has particularly fat ankles. Another note to Hitch's art, I really love the scene. So Jarvis comes in and says, whatever his line is. The next panel is Natasha's face with the bullet casing.
Yeah, there's like her arms extended, but you can't. The camera's too close. You can't see the gun. Yeah,
and you just see the bullet casing, and then the next panel is blood splattering out of Jarvis's head. And I just
with a small hole in the front. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought. I mean, beautiful seems like the wrong word. I just think that's a really creative.
No, it's fantastic.
Display
and the orange
action going on.
Yeah, the orange juice spilling out of the glass is fantastic.
It's a great way to like with a still medium show that action and movement. Yeah.
It also speaks to how quickly she moved because it's almost like the camera couldn't keep up with her. It's like. I mean, I don't really usually get psychotically deep into the art and how sequential art is very individual in terms of media to digest. But like, that is a choice made by Bryan Hitch that is like, there's so much in that one panel, and it's not just about the panel, but it's about like the spacing in between the panels, like what's happening in between those panels, like so the pacing of the scene kind of belies like this would happen at this speed and like this is what you're going with and like they're just lying in bed kind of thing. But the way that her arm is extended beyond the panel just shows how quickly she moved her hand to shoot him in the head. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. Versus like it's just so there's such a minute detail there in terms of like what is said between panels that we don't really discuss a lot, but like, and I could get into way more often, obviously, but such a beautifully done job. Like he had 4 panels to draw a thing, and he did it in such a way that just showcased so specifically how quick and how deadly she is. You know, like in such a short span of time. It was awesome. He's fantastic.
And then,
Rant over.
So the theft of America continues. Red Tornado bots to New York. Quicksilver being just amazing. Immediately runs to just like running around, rescuing people.
First of all, he cleared because Nick Fury is like, "How do we survive?" And Quicksilver's like, "I cleared the top 3 floors of the Triskelon before it crashed." So
the top 3 floors.
Yeah. So he literally
not
ran
just
up
like
and down.
he didn't just save the people in that room. He saved a pretty sizable handful of people, I'd imagine, in the top 3 floors of that building.
And then he just says, "Wanda, keep in touch," and he takes off. And Wanda's like, "Where are you going?" And he just says, "Be strong, Wanda. We're the only chance they have left." As he is dismantling one of the giant evil Iron Man suit's legs.
Yeah, because you know why he says this? Because he
down.
knows Thor and Captain America are not there.
Yeah.
He's
And
like,
it's
they're
just-
out.
It's like such a like not that there's too much connection to their Ultimate X-Men versions, but like
Yeah.
these people were part of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants like a year ago. And just the character growth with that. And there's a really cool moment in Ultimate
He has some
X-Men
truly
where
heroic moments. He's a true hero in
He's
this, I think.
100%.
No, he's, and also I would say, I don't know if he's the only one, but he's one of the very few just flat out heroes we have in this comic. Because,
and I think like he wants to so much distance himself from Magneto, and he does not, because in Ultimate X-Men, Magneto is like straight up abusive to him. And I think he just
100%,
he wants to be a superhero so bad, and he fucking is.
He also inspires fucking Wanda.
Yes.
Like, a lot of the things that Wanda accomplishes is because he's like, you do better, you have to do better. And she's like, okay. And she like, you know, like, it's just, those moments happen a lot.
Well, they play off each other because like a lot of
Quicksilver's
absolutely best moments
100%.
are Wanda just saying like, do this.
Oh
for
yeah,
me.
100%.
Like, all right,
they have a deep
He
bond.
does it.
You don't really hear about that here, but they got a deep bond.
They fuck about as much as Nick and Betty do.
Yeah,
I don't think they actually fuck. I refuse.
I know. I'm
I
joking.
think they just
I'm
have like
joking.
a
I don't think
weirdly. They have a weirdly like protective. I think they had a fucked up upbringing, and they had like a weird.
They have a psychotically close bond that borders on sexual.
I'm joking. I was joking. We all know Wanda fucks robots.
If it was
of course.
revealed that
We all
Pietro
know she's-
and Wanda fucked, I feel like I wouldn't be able to handle it and be able to accept it.
So the bad guys have Iron Man suits that are bigger than the good guy Iron Man suits. The bad guys have super soldiers that are flying, so better than the super soldiers that the good guys have. So like there's kind of like a real quick shift in balance of like, oh shit, we're fucked, you know, kind of thing.
I love those panels where you see the enemy flying men flying through the ears of the giant.
Oh, it's so good.
And just
Never
murdering the giant men.
Forget those panels. There's the images of them flying through one ear and out the other of these giant men's brains is just horrifying.
Look at the giant man in the background. There's a dude that has like 6 or 7 puncture holes in his like abdomen and one in his head as they're just shooting through them. Let alone all the small, like Captain America-esque shield agents that are just getting smashed or punched in the face.
They're just slaughtered.
Just horrifying.
And so, in addition to these kind of mass-produced villains, we're also introduced to some of the main cast of the Liberators. So you have Evil Thor with his little communist sickle, who he shocks Pietro. He kind of electrocutes him.
Yeah, Pietro's been struck by lightning like 4 or 5 times within the span.
He needs to get a handle over that. Yeah, he needs to get a handle on that. And we get to meet Captain Middle East with his little Darth Maul.
He doesn't do
lightsaber.
dumb names. He's just a colonel.
His name's Abdul. He's also caked up in this first scene. If y'all know what caked up means, I know that because
that's a butt shot, right? Is that a butt shot?
His ass is like really popping in that shot.
I mean,
I really like that duel.
He's got
No?
I did too. I thought he was cool.
I do have a question for y'all. How the fuck does his lightsaber? Why is it a lightsaber?
I was going to bring that up. There's no logic.
How does it?
There's no logic.
The handle moves. Do the handles move or do the lasers?
In this panel, it's all handle. In this one, it's all handle.
Right.
And then in others, it's not.
And then others, it's like two small handles.
Well,
with a
also
red
when it
beam
breaks
everywhere.
later, it shatters later. So obviously, it's a solid thing. You know,
Right.
like so, it's
But
not
then
literally a
'cause
lightsaber.
But when you hit people with it, it kind of turns into a lightsaber. I don't know.
I think it's meant to be like it's a lightsaber in the sense of like maybe it's contained within something that like actually makes sense,
Maybe,
like physically.
But
with
what
physics,
would it do? Because it's not an actual laser beam. It's
I
like
think it's kind of more
encased.
like a baton that has a assload of energy running through it or something,
But what
like
happens,
Thor's
like,
hammer style.
If he were to touch you with the glowing red part, what happens? It just looks like a glass casing with a light in it. What would that do to you?
I
That's
don't
what I'm saying. Like, it seems like in other issues when he hits people with it, it like goes through their bodies. But
well,
that's
let's analyze that as we
go.
go along then, because like I don't know if I have an answer until I see it. In play.
Patrick, to answer your question, there is no logic behind this weapon or how it works or what it looks like because it's different.
There's no
every
logic.
time.
Yeah,
it's
it's even drawn later differently at the end of the issue where he's holding it up. Like the handle is way shorter. Yeah,
Yeah. Always different. I don't remember Abdul being so chivalrous. Like, I think my brain when I was younger was just very fucked up, I guess, because
you were just racist. You just
I
assumed he
probably
was.
were you
racist?
racist?
Middle Eastern man.
I grew up.
I
in a
remember
house with
empathizing with
Fox
him
News
pretty
on all the
greatly,
time.
actually. I almost didn't want him to lose. Like when he lost at the end, I was like, "Oh fuck, dude, I'm sorry." You know, that kind of thing. I remember feeling that way.
I mean, I remember at the time kind of thinking,
like you shouldn't have done what you did,
liberators.
but also, and so you deserve it, but also, I'm sorry, man. You know, kind of thing. Like,
yeah, I mean, at the time, I was very much more on the ultimate side, but I still had a little bit of me was kind of like, well, the liberators sort of have a point. You know?
Yeah, no, they definitely have a
point.
point. I think that's spelled out pretty clearly. I think the key here is that like, and we're not giving them enough credit, so to speak, but like the whole point of the end of this book is that like Captain America and the other Avengers, they later become the Avengers and not the Ultimates. They kind of say like, this isn't working. Like we can't do like you're exploiting us. You can't use us in this way. We can't be connected to the government anymore. Like this is what it brings about. Like the whole point of this arc is to like free the Avengers from the government almost. And they needed like this unification of other countries going, hey, fuck you, America. And then for them to wake up and go, oh shit, we shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong. Like, you know, kind of thing. Like we should be our own entity and protect all people and not just like, and I think that's what the whole point of this arc is, really. That's what I take away from it, at least, on a wholesome level.
My last note on this issue is that I loved the fact that there was at least like one comment from, I think, Abdul. He asks about the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, like implying that taking down the Fantastic Four and the X-Men was also part of their plan. And just acknowledging the fact that other superheroes lived.
Yeah,
in New
when
York
something
City.
this huge is happening in the comics, they either involve the other people and it's a giant crossover and it's annoying, or they ignore them completely. So just to acknowledge that they're existing and that they have also factored them into the plan and they're like took them out too, like implies like, oh, that makes sense. Like, why isn't the Fantastic Four rushing to help them, or the X-Men or whatever, you know, kind of thing. And like the fact that they even just mentioned that is nice, you know, like thank you for your grown-up point of view for comic book writing and a silly thing that's this destructive. Why the fuck would the other superheroes be there? Even Spider-Man is mentioned, you know, or like is there later.
Well, there's scenes with him in it too, and then so this issue ends with like a hero shot of the Liberators.
Yeah.
So first of all, you see like everyone has their foil except for I don't know who the fuck Schizoid Man is supposed to foil, but he's there. Loki's posing, just like putting his hair back. I love.
He just has his hands
everything
behind his
about
head.
Loki. I love Loki. He's just hanging out.
Yeah, he's just having a good time,
jacket on.
causing some chaos, you know?
Just chatting, causing chaos. Love Loki in this. And then, Captain Middle East's baton is a different shape in this panel than we've seen before, but, you know, that's fine. I want to talk about evil Thor. So bald large ring on his ear and sunglasses. That's a
it's a choice. It's a choice he made. Yeah,
that's
it's
a look he went with. But yeah.
I mean, when you're wearing skin tight leather with glowing discs on your body, I mean, like, it's not that far off, you know?
I guess. Yeah. I don't know. But so that's the Liberators. And then there's also an evil speedster. There's the Abomination. There's the Red Tornado, who's evil Iron Man. There's the evil Wasp.
I love that you just keep calling him Red Tornado. But yeah, go on. Yeah.
Isn't it Red Tornado?
No.
Don't
Crimson
they specifically
Dynamo.
Call it? Oh, Crimson Dynamo. Oh my God! Right. All right. Let's stick to Red Tornado.
Yeah,
All right. So
I like it.
Dynamo.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm confused.
Yeah, you're right. The Schizoid Man doesn't really have like a.
He doesn't really match, but he's
have a match, I guess.
Oh, Crimson Dynamo. I'm confusing my red androids, but
Schizoid Man.
And then there's.
I didn't understand why multiple man, like why steal multiple man's powers.
I assume it's because of like an instant army kind of thing. Like it's a bad guy.
That's what I thought, that never happens though. Like I thought that was going to be a big thing, but it never happened.
If I'm just stealing powers, I would be like, here's Bizarro Professor X and here's Bizarro Magneto. Yeah. Those are the powers I stole. You can have your Schizoid Man. I got these two doing my bidding.
It was just such a random, like to y'all's point.
But you need expendable people.
And why does then evil Wasp or whatever, the Swarm or whatever her name is, like why is she a stone horned monster that can control bugs?
I don't know. I don't know how they made her powers, man.
Also with her, I thought in issue 6. In the Defenders issue, they really showed how stupid of a power that was that Hank Pym.
Yeah, there's only like 20 ants around.
Yeah. So I thought with her, there was going to be some big scene where she just like decimates a bunch of people, but every time she uses her powers, the superheroes seem completely unbothered by the insects that she's throwing at them. Like
I think and Hitch are just against insect powers. Yeah, I think they're just saying we're not here for
very possibly.
Because even Janet, like Janet's big hero moment is turning giant instead of into a wasp. So I think Mark Millar is really just saying tiny powers are for the birds.
Yeah, stupid.
Like get rid of bug powers are pointless.
We're done here.
The next issue is Axis of Evil, where we get a little kind of intro to the Middle East and what it. A Middle East.
We find out where Abdul came from, which is kind of interesting seeing that from his perspective. And then we also see it's basically the origins of all the Axis of Evil.
It's basically the Axis of Evil giving a PowerPoint presentation on every character's powers and where they came from.
Yeah.
So we know who the
I do love the idea of the flying super soldier guys that apparently are not connected to the Schizoid Man, which is what it should be. But how they're just power suits and they burn out in like a month, so they don't last very long. Yeah. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's kind of awesome.
Suicide.
Also,
basically kamikaze.
Yeah, it's got a real like for the cause, the kind of move about it, and I'm like, I love that sort of.
Another point I wanted to make is so the Evil Liberators group is in France.
Yeah, they're at the Louvre
France?
for some reason.
Yeah, their headquarters is the Louvre. I thought that's weird.
France didn't want to. World War III. World War II. They were really shit on. They didn't want to get they were front in line.
I thought.
What does Captain France have to say about that? I wonder.
I don't think there is a Captain France. We haven't met.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, I think there was.
Captain Italy, Spain. There was a France, wasn't there?
I don't know if there was a France.
I think
there was France and Spain, and then Italy was like the troublemaker.
But we do see. Oh, speaking of Abdullah's origin, we get a Snyder Zeus scale reading when he flexes after that. Look at that. He's pretty.
Oh yeah, look at him. Yeah, you're right. You're not wrong.
With his little head bandage on, he's pretty. He's at least a 7 or an 8 on a Snyder Zeus scale. 7.
What the fuck? 7 or 8?
I don't know. 5.
Right here. Look at that.
He's a 5.
Look at his fucking arms. I'm sorry. No, he's a 5. 7 or 8.
Do you know how big Snyder Zeus is? Do I need to show you a picture of Snyder Zeus?
5.5?
We need to reevaluate our Snyder Zoo scale so we're all on the same page, guys.
I love how it's all inverted now.
Yeah, I know. Like me and Patty are going like, "Are you out of your mind?"
Well, because I got so much shit. I got so much shit earlier about my.
You were refusing to put anyone on the scale. That's why.
So we're
also
introduced to all the Liberators, and we get to then we flash back to present day, and Hank Pym is there, who's been in on it the entire time, I guess.
I love that. Well, what do you think? Well, Dr. Pym, what do you think? And he's like, hey, there's not a lot of ants around here.
And then it's pretty clear that Hank flips sides just to get money to build his Ultron robots, which are basically
He has these stupid robots just like meaningless.
Hey, listen, in Hank's defense, he went to Nick Fury and he got turned down.
But we get this scene of these stupid robots just meaninglessly like directing foot traffic. It's like that's what Hank's
They're helpful.
Crowd control.
But I mean, that's what Hank's good for, is just have your robots point to a direction where people should walk.
But the next big scene is we flip from that back to Tony Natasha, and I just wanted to say I appreciate the fact that Tony just let Natasha put her Liberator's uniform on, because last time we saw them, she was in spider print underwear, and now she's in a full leather costume.
Is that weird that she put clothes on? What I think is interesting.
When did she have the time to do that?
What? She has a gun on Tony. What do you mean?
So she just holds the gun up. She's like, "Stay right there while I put my hat on."
Yeah. He puts one arm through, switches the gun to that hand, and then puts the other.
Also,
arm
Tony's
through.
fully dressed, but still has a bottle of champagne in his hand.
When did Tony put his clothes on?
Well, first of all, I mean, I can assume that she was like, "Get up, put your clothes on, let's go. I need you still for whatever reason." You know, that's not weird.
So, but this is when it's revealed by Natasha that Tony has embezzled like $100 billion from the U.S. taxpayers.
Yeah, I had that in my notes. Like, it's insane. So I was just like, Tony embezzled funds? What?
Oh, so I was gonna say not about the funds, because he's horrible. But like, I was gonna say something that we constantly look over, or really haven't even discussed in Ultimates 1 or 2, I think, is that he's dying. So he's in the Ultimate Universe, he's got like a brain tumor and he's dying. That's why he's making all these crazy decisions and made an Iron Man suit. That's why he's done everything he's done.
Which is even more insane that he's
slowly
money.
dying is the point. So like that's why he's sort of like, well, I'm super rich. What else am I gonna do? Let's go save the world, I guess. Yeah, I mean, like he has no conscience. There's no morals behind what he's doing. He's just doing something because it's like fun before he dies, kind of thing. It adds a level of like insight into like what the hell is going on in his head when he makes
Joe, I feel like that makes him sound even more sociopathic, because doesn't
for sure,
he's a horrible person.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I know.
Yeah, Natasha has a sick burn on Tony though, because like Tony says, "Why did you leave me alive to make a funds transfer?" And she says, "No, because I find cancer-ridden drunks who smell of chemotherapy drugs attractive." That's a pretty sick burn.
Yeah, she really just smashes him down.
But then it turns out that Tony has the upper hand because he put Bill Gates nanobots in her to control her. He did the little COVID vaccine nanites like Bill Gates did.
Well, that's how she controls the suit. Silly.
Yeah, also kind of an oversight on her part to be like the Black Widow and enhanced and, 5 steps ahead tactician. Like to not really think about the nanites that's in her body that Tony put in her body. I don't know. It just seemed like a pretty big oversight.
I think it's kind of in a super PG version of that. It's like Spider-Man having a suit made by Tony in the MCU and kind of going like, wait, what? I can do like you can stop me from moving, or you can stop, like that kind of thing. Like it's that like here's this awesome technology. You want one of these suits? And she's like, hell yeah. And then like but like why wouldn't you think beyond that sort of? I don't know.
Well, maybe
I thought it was awesome.
Yeah,
she might have the first time I read it, I thought it was awesome because he uses the nanites to basically paralyze her body, and then he smashes her over the head with a bottle of champagne.
I was uncomfortable with the physical violence and like smashing.
She just shot someone in the head. What? Joe, I don't understand. She's a super assassin.
Joe,
what are you talking about?
She is paralyzed in his control.
How else would he do it?
Joe, he breaks a bottle, like literally breaks the bottle on her face after she's paralyzed. I found that fairly uncomfortable to read.
I think
I don't know. If
it
someone had
wasn't for
just
the
murdered
fact-
somebody I cared for, I wouldn't hesitate to smash a bottle over their head,
I
whether
know
they were
Natasha's a
currently
piece of shit.
incapacitated
I'm
or not.
Yeah, I get it. Like, Natasha's a piece of shit. It's visually
She murdered
uncomfortable to
Hawkeye's
see.
children.
Yes,
I
feel
get
like
that. I'm
is
not. She's awful.
That
She's
is
awful.
the big thing. But if you removed that, the fact that she killed kids is what's really fucked up, and it's irredeemable, and that makes her character irredeemable. And that's why it makes Tony look like the good guy. But really, these are both bad people.
They're both
And it's like
exactly.
make-
Oh, he's
make-
let me get something straight. He's a horrible person. But him smashing her in the head with a bottle is not bad.
But I think to
I
make
disagree.
Natasha like the worst person, you had to have her kill fucking children. Otherwise,
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to Hawkeye being amazing. It's the man can rip his own fingernails off and kill somebody.
Well, so
From a
I have
chair.
I have a lot of thoughts on this. So first of all, so Hawkeye says, "You should have left my fingernails in, dummy," and then he uses his fingernails to kill everybody. How would anybody know that somebody could use their nails to kill somebody?
I don't think they do know. I think it's just him going like, "Fuck you! I still have weapons at my fingertips." Literally.
I know, but I just mean the way he made that comment is like no one could ever guess that your fingernails would be weapons because it's
he
not,
basically is saying like, "You took everything away from me, but you didn't. Fuck you." I don't understand. That's not
Yeah,
a
and
bad.
then
That's a good line.
follow-up. Okay, but then a follow-up note: Hawkeye is not human.
no.
No.
A
Yeah.
human being could not hurl his fingernails to kill people.
Like
I-
I buy that you can withstand the. I buy that Hawkeye can withstand the pain of shooting his own fingernails off his body. I buy that he has the accuracy to hit certain things, but I think it takes like 1,100 pounds of pressure to crack the human skull, and for you to be able to shoot your fingernail by flicking it and shoot through someone's head, it just seems.
I mean,
insane.
people
Like,
can sink playing cards into like a wall from like quite a
Joe.
distance.
Joe, I think
I'm
if
just
you
saying,
got-
like there's a minuscule amount of reality there.
Joe, if you got 10 million people and told them rip off your own fingernails and flick them
That's
at
why.
somebody
That's
else
why
and
Hawkeye's
kill them,
awesome.
zero of those 10 million, statistically, zero of them would be able to achieve this.
Yeah, I
This
know,
is-
and they're
a
not Hawkeye.
human being
Yeah.
cannot do this.
I'm well aware of that. Yeah, I get that.
So I just wanted to make that point that he is not human. But he, anyway,
I think
he
there's
breaks
people that
out.
can flick a fucking nickel and it will like do some
yeah.
damage. Yeah.
I mean, I will say I love that scene. I thought it was amazing, but yeah, totally. For Hawkeye to be like a normal human. didn't
Oh
make
no,
sense.
yeah,
But
it's
it
insane.
was
It's impossible.
pretty awesome.
I do,
and then,
I
like,
do love how
when-
all the troops rush in and they're like, go, 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 and they're like, open fire. He touches one of those guns and we're dead. Like they know, like if he even touches a gun, they're all fucked, and it's just like they're already too late. He already has his hand like right over a gun. Idiots. It's fantastic. I know it's insane. It doesn't make any logical sense, but
Yeah,
it
it is insane. It is insane, but it's awesome. And then
And he
this
just
is
looks up at the
also-
camera after he murders them all and just goes, run, and smiles. It's fantastic.
And then we also get the scene we alluded to before of Captain America breaking free and
Yeah.
Schizoid Man beating up Janet for a bit, and then Captain America just saying, "I've been here the whole time.
Yeah,
I've been here for over an hour.
I've been here for over an hour.
I've been here for over
I
an
actually
hour."
think
And then beating
Cap
up.
is using the dentist system, and he's demonstrating value to Jan, being like, "See what I do for you."
That could be. That could be. Yeah. And this is and that comment Joe made earlier about "get the hell away from my girlfriend." Little does he know that she's going to be fucking Hank again. But all right, next issue, America Strikes Back.
It goes back to Cap brutalizing the Schizoid Man, like
The
smashing.
Schizoid Man, he's just
Oh,
beating
man.
the fuck out. I mean, this
Just
scene where he is
beating
kicking
them.
his face through the wall.
I know.
Look at that. The face is getting crushed and kicked through a wall.
And
I
from
love it.
Cap's perspective, it's like an afterthought. He's more focused on the other
Yeah,
other
he's
people fighting.
using his upper body to fight. His lower body is just moving independent of his upper
Yeah.
body, just smashing people into walls.
And then
It's
Janet
fantastic.
does a thing which is
I
one of
hate
those.
I fucking
So
hate
Janet
it.
does another classic, like, it sounds cool in the moment, but think about it logically. So she
This
says,
is
like,
this is kind of a Martian Manhunter. Like, why don't you do this every time? Or why doesn't
Exactly,
Aquaman
'cause-
lobotomize every villain because they're evolved from fish, kind of thing?
so she has this moment where she goes, like, my stinging powers, imagine if they did them as, like, an adult. And
As a
not
full-size person.
As a full-size human, right. And so
As an
she
adult.
knocks out.
Imagine if
as
I
an
was a
adult.
grown-up
I'm a real
girl.
boy. I'm a real boy. And so she does it and knocks people out, and then it's cool in the moment. But then if you think about it, well, then why don't you just do that every mission?
Ow, she doesn't knock them out. She vaporizes their bodies, like they're husks of skin after she
No, I
is
think
out.
I think it's the power suits. Like, there's a time limit, but also there's an amount that they can handle. So, like, I think it's more like overloading how super powered they can be for however long.
Gotcha.
Like, basically, it's like, if I punch you and you're wearing one of those suits, you're gonna be like, "Haha, good try, dummy." But if Captain America punches you, you're like, okay, shit, now I only have a week left, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's, like, so when she does the Sparky wasp sting thing, I think it's like, and now we're done. Kind of thing.
But I mean, the point stands of, like, why don't you just do that all the time then? If
Right.
you can-
Yeah,
That's
no,
what,
I
like,
completely agree. Yeah.
I was half expecting Captain America to be like, wait a minute, you've always been able to do that, and you just chose now? You didn't do it?
Yeah. You just
Like,
now chose the moment
now?
to do that? Like, of all time? I feel like her and Hank do that throughout. Like, they just constantly go like, hey, guess what? I got another thing up my sleeve. And you're just like, why the fuck did you use all of this all at once? Why are you holding cards back? Just show us all your
Yeah.
cards. You're on a superhero team already.
But
So anyway,
then
George Bush
then-
screams for his wife.
Yeah, so literal George Bush is in this.
Oh, sorry, George
Let's go.
W. Bush.
W. Yeah,
Yeah,
literal
W.
George W. is in here. And he shouts for Laura as Air Force One gets attacked by the Red
I
Tornado.
do like how the pacing of this and like how like the quote unquote Avengers, the Ultimates are being freed or like sort of fighting back. You still have the continuation of the bad guy's plan. It still keeps moving in that direction of like, yeah, we're continuing. Like, the Fantastic Four is captured. Spider-Man has shackles on, like, kind of thing. Like, we're none of that stuff has like reached the surface yet, so they don't even know what's happening. They're like, has anyone talked to Schizoid Man? Kind of thing. Like, it just keeps moving, and it's really interesting how, like, as a reader, you get to see them starting to come back, but as the bad guy team, it's not like they know right away and start fighting them. They're just moving
Right.
along with their plan. It's really cool.
They
Yep.
realize that Captain America has escaped, and I do love because Hank Pym's like, I think you're underestimating Rogers, Colonel. Seriously, you need to force your attention on finding him. You're putting the entire mission in danger.
Hank of
And, like,
all
you can
people.
really feel Hank is terrified of this.
Yeah,
mission.
Hank is like,
terrified.
you don't know where Captain America is? Where's Captain America? Why do you not know where Captain America is? I don't think you understand. If Captain America's loose, that's a huge problem. We need to figure out what that's going on. I'm
I
secretly
like-
on their side, as my Ultron robots will say later. But
Well, I also, so I don't think
But I'm
we've
very
talked
worried.
enough about. We haven't talked enough about. I love Loki in this, but even like when Hank's all freaking out, Loki's just like, "Look, we got the president, like, floating above us. You don't think that's going to smoke Captain America out? Like, why do we have to waste time looking for him? He's going to come
Yeah.
here, buddy." So I just like.
he's like, by the
Loki's
time he comes to
nonchalant.
you, it'll be over. Like, he's like, you don't understand.
Yeah, but
I
just
love how they
appreciate-
break in to save. They're like, all right, let's go. And they kick the door in, and Hawkeye's just in the room. He's like, yeah, I already did it.
Well, I have one point just before this, just because I just find Cap and Jan's relationship so interesting. Because Jan is kind of acting calm. She says, "Oh my God, did you see what they did to Air Force One? This is a nightmare, Steve. I can't believe this is even happening." And then Steve's reaction is like, "Jan, please get it together, woman. I need to know I can trust you." Like,
You've got to
he's the
keep
one-
it together. We're the only ones left to fix this situation.
he's like, we're all gonna die. And it's like, it's just kind of that funny parallel how in politics, men always accuse women of being like the emotional ones, when Jan is just kind of like giving rational commentary on what's happening, and Steve is the one that's kind of like losing his shit.
He's like, I'm freaking out right now, Jan. I need to know that you're here for me because I'm freaking out.
You guys read that very differently from me.
Well, I think because of our last episode, like I was very focused on their relationship and their interactions, and I was like,
he doesn't yell, "We're all gonna die."
He just
says,
"Jan, please, you've got to keep it together. We're the only ones left to fix this situation, and if we don't free the others here, we're all going to die."
Yeah, he literally says we're all going to die.
Yeah, but he's not yelling and freaking out. He's just going, "Hey, we need to be on the same page because we're all gonna die if you don't focus up." Like I don't think I read that completely different.
I don't know. I mean, it either way, Jan is just kind of like, I'm here to do my business.
Yeah.
And Steve's like, are you here for me because we are all going to die unless you help me out here? Can I count on you?
Total disagree. Total disagree. Next,
Steve, but Hawkeye's there.
Well, I mean, his country did just to portray him, So.
Yeah. We also get a scene of Iron Man flying into space to a suspicious-looking giant satellite, which he built with embezzled billions, and we're supposed to be okay with all of that.
Taxpayer money.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I trust my tax dollars with Tony before the U.S. government.
And then the Liberators join the fight. So Cap takes an abomination stomp, like face on, like a double-fisted attack. That's impressive.
I mean, I feel like he could take that from Hulk.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, but that's like Hulk level smashing him down. That's pretty impressive.
He does not get up right away, to be honest. He gets smashed through the wall and is on the ground.
And then the Colonel shows up with a different configuration of lightsaber.
Obviously, those handles can slide around or whatever that electrical beam thing is.
Clearly, I guess the glass electrical thing is the stable part, and the handles expand and slide around.
It's just a fluorescent light bulb tube.
I think it's just an LED light. I think
it's just handles sliding, and he's like, "Doesn't this look cool?" And they're all like, "Jesus, Colonel, can you just get a real weapon?" And he's like,
"I think it is just an LED ceiling light, and he's sliding around doing But so he shows up with a different configuration.
I have to say, Loki just really likes putting his head behind his hands.
Yeah, Loki's always hands behind his head.
He's always just like, "What's up? I'm relaxing, even though I'm walking around." It's very weird body
very relaxed.
Movements, but okay.
And we get to see a red-capped Bruce Banner.
I was very hyped for this moment when I first read it. I was like, "Yes, the fucking Hulk!"
I loved it. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, because you knew like the good guys were going to win then when he showed up. You're like, okay, it's in the bag.
And then the next issue is called The Avengers.
Right, and I guess, like I said, I think, I know we've talked about all the political BS around this, the way it was written, when it was written, how it was written, the way that the Liberators are actually empathetical to the reader, all of those things point to the fact that the heroes are realizing that also. And I think that's them going we can't do what we've currently been doing. What we're doing is wrong, and we need to help people, and rather than be attached to the government, we need to be our own entity. And they even, that's how this whole story ends. But this is the birth of that moment of just them all coming together as heroes, less than let's do this because Nick Fury asked us to, kind of thing.
Well, this is an art note for this issue. The way it opens is you have the giant evil Iron Man suits, and the first page is Hulk, and he's got one of them by the hand, but the perspective, Hulk is very small, and he's swinging the giant Iron Man so effortlessly, and he's knocking down two other giant Iron Men with it. It just really emphasizes how fucking strong this motherfucker is.
Yeah, it's insane.
And their bodies, the Iron Men are just tearing apart as he's doing it.
I love that the giant Iron Man cockpits are in the crotch.
Yeah.
just a design note I just wanted to touch on. I love how Abomination is like, Banner's here? Colonel Abdul is like, deal with him. And he's like, and he just goes running off, and I'm like, really, man? You think you're vicious enough for the Hulk? Like, come on.
But Abomination's the same thing, right? He should be able to hang with him, right?
He should be able to, but I think the thing is he has too much of his intellect. Like, the Hulk doesn't really think about pain or consequences.
Yeah, it's just. But also, so I think it's that idea that, like, if you're not Steve Rogers, you're just a derivative of that. Like, you're not, like, no one's ever been able to match that perfectly, and I think the Hulk is kind of the same scenario. Like, especially in the Ultimates, like, he's a derivative of Steve Rogers' super soldier serum mixed with some sort of radiation, gamma or whatever, like, and it created the Hulk, and, like, there's nothing that matches that level of, like, pure destruction power, like, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
I forgot that.
Like,
also,
no matter how much you try to recreate it, it's just not going to be the same thing.
Yeah, and also I forgot that Ultimate Hulk is also Hulk times super soldier serum. Mm-hmm. So he's like extra Hulk because
or just like I think it's just a realistic way of creating the Hulk in this scenario. But yeah, right.
No, well, Bruce was the Hulk before the super soldier serum.
Yeah, but the super soldier serum made him
extra Hulk.
Yeah,
yeah,
Gray Hulk.
Yeah. Yes, the Gray Hulk.
I did kind of wish there was a little bit more background given on the Liberators. Like,
there's none. I mean, we get those like 3-panel flashbacks, and that's it. Like, we really don't get to meet them at all.
I think if you had paced this story in a manner of giving them backstory as they built into a team, it would have taken away from the first 7 issues of the book. Like,
yeah.
The trial of the Hulk is so good, and then
exactly.
And
it
just
had to be a plot twist.
Yeah.
It had to be a plot twist.
I would have loved to see more from them, or from their perspectives, and who they were before this all happened. But I think it was done in basically the best way it could have been done, and kept the story moving at a good pace.
What I think would have been cool, and I know they wouldn't have had the time for this, but like, do the 8 issues they did, and then maybe do like 4 or 5 issues from the Liberator's perspective of that same time period.
Are you suggesting tie-in books?
No, as part of the Ultimates, but just like do 2 parallel, like first do the Ultimates perspective leading up to it, and then the next issues are the Liberator's perspective, and then you bring it together.
That would have been
like,
cool.
That would have,
They did kind of cram in the Liberator's perspective.
And also, given the production delays, that it would have been like a 20-issue thing anyway, so you couldn't do that. But at least But I agree with Patrick's point that one negative of this run you do feel is you kind of like the Liberators don't have much in the way of.
They don't, but they're also. I mean, we kind of touched on this in the JLA Rock of Ages.
They're like a pastiche.
Yeah, but like but the bad guy versions of the good guys, like, I'm in every time. Like, I don't need like a huge amount of backstory. I'm just like, oh, bad guy version of Captain America, bad guy version of the Hulk, bad guy version of Iron Man. I'm in. Like, I'm excited, even if it's stupid and not well thought out. But I feel like this is well thought out, and they gave us enough to where, like, I don't feel like they were shortchanged. I just feel like, I would have loved to know more about them.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I was, as reading the story in terms of pacing, it almost would have slowed the story down too much. Like, I would have been like, I don't give a fuck about who they are. I want to know why Captain America's in jail or when he's going to break out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, from a reader's perspective, I would have been like, no, get the fuck out of here. Get back onto the story,
If it was a situation where it was like a bi-weekly release, but the fact that these issues were coming out once every 3 months, very aggravating, probably. And then you
run the risk of either a fill-in artist or it takes even longer, and you're just like, no, I don't want to see one panel that's drawn by someone else. Number one, number two, because I love Bryan Hitch, but number two, like, I just feel like it would have taken the pace out of the story. Like, the story's not about who they were; it's about the threat that they're now facing, and like where the Ultimates are now having to deal with them.
So I do well. So I agree on the logistics of it all. I do disagree. I do think narratively there's a way to make it work, so that you can still have the twist of like the Liberators are here, but also give them a little bit more character. But anyway, but I get like logistically that just wasn't going to happen, and that's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
But so they all kind of pair up and fight. So Pietro has another just incredibly insane moment where he and the speedster fight, and the evil speedster like talks her shit or whatever.
Well, first of all, she's beating the shit out of Hawkeye.
Yeah.
And then
Beating the shit out of him.
Yeah, and there's a panel of Pietro waking up like in Wanda's arms and then racing away from where Nick Fury and Wanda are fighting, and there's bullets frozen in time as he leaves them. So like clearly he's moving at speeds that are very high. And then
but the other point is, Joe, what wakes him up is the evil person talking shit to Hawkeye saying, "Come on, I thought they said you were fast."
Yeah,
and hearing
he's
the
like,
word
"Oh,
fast
you think he's fast?"
Yeah. But
So,
that's what I
mean,
love
like,
is hearing the word fast is what woke up Pietro as like, oh shit.
This fight is so fantastic. Basically, Hawkeye gets his ass kicked and he's falling backwards after being smacked in the face for like the 20th time. And his back is arched and he's flying backwards, and Quicksilver comes in and starts fighting this chick, and while they fight, Hawkeye continues to fall in slow motion, and it is spectacular. I love it so much.
And then Pietro just talks shit so he grabs the speedster and just starts running her forward. And he says like, how fast are we? Mach 5, Mach 10? He's like, I was doing this in middle school.
Yeah.
When I had pimples. When I had pimples. And he basically, carrying the evil speedster, runs so fast that her body dissolves.
Just like rumbles apart. Yeah. It's not even dissolves. Like, it just like shakes apart. The speed is too high. Yeah.
Yeah. It's insane.
It's fantastically awesome. There's not even like, there's no background. It's just lines. But like, in a Flash comic, you'd be like, oh, that's normal. But in this comic, where everything is drawn so photorealistic, when you see speeds of things rushing by them at that speed, where it's just nothingness in the background, it's just a bunch of lines, it evokes a better feeling of speed. Like, you're like, oh my god, there must be traveling at...
So he runs the evil to death, stops right next to Hawkeye panting, and Hawkeye says, Quicksilver, stop messing around and give me a hand. And Quicksilver just shoots him a look.
Just looks at him.
Is, just this like eat shit and die look. Like I just fucking
it's
saved
so
you.
Fucking good. And also it goes right back to Ultimates 1, where we used to like the whole joke of Pietro being like on the team but not on the team, and he keeps going like, I saved people, I was there, slow down the footage, I was there, like it just nonstop they bring it back up. And it's just like, to see it come to fruition in this climactic event is so fucking amazing, and I love it so much because it shows how much he does when they're not looking. Yeah, it's just such a good. It's such a good callback. It's such a good callback. Let's put it that way.
Because to Hawkeye's perspective, he just like was pushed back and fell down and looks over, and Pietro's standing there. So he's like, "Why don't you help me?"
Yeah, he's like,
not even having realized.
He's like, stop messing around and help me, huh? And it's like, you son of a bitch.
This is like probably one of my top 5 favorite moments of any comic book ever.
I mean, it's so good. It's so good.
The evil speedster's name is Hurricane, and she is very cocky. And I'm going to go ahead and read everything they say, because Quicksilver says, touch him again and I'll take your head off, talking about Hawkeye. And he says, don't pretend you can't hear me, witch. I can tell you've been kitted out, because he's talking so fast that only their speedster could hear what he's saying.
On that note, their word bubbles aren't word bubbles. They're just narration blocks, which I also love.
And she goes from being super cocky. Her last lines are, Pietro, please.
Yeah.
And then he just says, feel your bones rumbling like you're riding on a freight train? That's molecules dancing. That's what happens when you threaten my friends. And that last line, her body is just dissolving into light. It's so...
Not even dissolving into light. There's her eyeballs floating off of her. Yeah. It's like her whole body is just like ripping apart. It's brutal as fuck. And then it just cuts to like real time, and it just Hawkeye goes boom, and hitting the ground, and you're like, that is so fucking awesome that it took that span of time. Like, it was like an eye blink. How fast do you fall from horizontal to the ground? Like a second?
Yeah.
You know, like, amazing. How is Fury still fighting with one arm? They just folded up his sleeve like he wouldn't be just pouring blood out of his arm.
Well, I'm assuming they put a tourniquet on it or something, right?
I mean, they must have, but like, what?
They must have, because otherwise...
And I guess like the lightsaber gets broken in half, and both Captain America and Abdul have lightsabers they're fighting. It's like very Star Wars, but they're both
an LED
red.
light.
Is it like symbolism though, saying like both of them are evil, pretty much? Like they're both like Sith type people.
Probably, because
I don't think so.
They are both evil.
Reading into that a lot.
The Star Wars imagery is very heavy. I feel like that is very much what's going on. And then
which one of these guys, Clark
Kent?
Kenting, do you think is Captain Italy? Do you think he's the one in the knit cap, or do you think he's the one in the baseball cap and the suit?
I don't think he showed up. I think he just...
Yeah, Captain Italy didn't show up.
Italy is neither one of those, because he has like long flowing hair, and neither one of those dudes has it. Yeah, so then, I mean, basically everybody fights, and then Janet goes giant.
I just love how
Wasp.
The Hulk fight, Abomination had the upper hand for like 2 seconds, and then just flips immediately, and Hulk just... I love how he says, "What's the square root of 6,211?"
It's a Bilbo Baggins reference. What's the capital of Texas? How many legs has a spider got? Can you tell the Hulk the formula for Coca-Cola?
Well, and going back,
we have
to
another
like
Liberator saying "Banner, please." He says "Banner, please," for heaven's sake.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it's the second one in a row. Just been like, "Oh my god, you're so brutal. I'm sorry." And then it's just
like the Hurricane
destroy.
Was like Pietro, please. This one's Banner. They all just immediately flip into like, "I'm so sorry.
Oh my god,
I'm so sorry. Please."
I didn't realize.
And then they get murdered anyway because our heroes murder people.
Yeah, and I just want to say,
I mean, these ones do. They're the ultimates.
The next page is Swarm, the evil like Ant-Man, like throwing her insects, and like the fact that Bryan Hitch does things so realistically, kind of like really emphasizes the fact that like Betty, like Nick isn't even reacting to them, and Betty's kind of just like acting like they're mosquitoes. Like,
yeah, she's just like, there's a lot of bugs buzzing around me.
Why is the Swarm on the team of Liberators to begin with? Like, I don't
know. They were trying to match the Wasp.
I guess.
The way she's defeated is in one panel, Janet turns giant and just steps on her. And that's the end.
As one does.
That's it. That's
Yeah,
the
I
end of the
think
Swarm.
So Hank gave her that formula. Like, I couldn't figure out. I mean, I guess maybe because he just loves Jan and didn't want Jan to get hurt. Like, not
100%. 100%.
Mm-hmm. So I'm like, what was? I guess
he's like, here's a secret weapon in case everything goes bad. Not that I know it will be, because I haven't been talking to a traitor or hanging out with the bad guys at all.
I'm a fucking idiot. That's totally what happened.
100%. He's the worst.
I want the rest of the Ultimates to die and America to change fundamentally and have the bad guys take over. But I still love you, even though I cracked the roof of your mouth when I tried to kill you before.
Yeah. And then, so at that point,
when the dust settles, I would like you to be alive so we could get back together. You know?
Well, and they will, but we can talk about that later. And then Red Tornado sees the tide turning, and so he kind of said, I'm going to keep calling him Red Tornado just for the rest of this.
Yeah. I mean, you should.
And so he says, like, oh, let's start killing civilians. And then a giant beam from space murders him. And Tony arrives in, like, a spaceship Iron Man.
He's literally cackling like a madman, though, and says, let's give them death like they've never seen before. And then he's like, oh, shut up, will you?
Right.
That's
and
awesome.
He arrives with a spaceship he built with taxpayer money, and which he's, by the way, operating while under the influence. He's drunk in there with a cocktail.
Would he not be?
It's kind of weird that they didn't go with just like a giant like
Iron Man robot,
like Gundam.
Like a Gundam.
Like,
yeah.
It's weird they didn't do that.
I kind of do find that disappointing because I just want Iron Man to always be Iron Man, and no matter how huge or ridiculously destructive he can be, like I would just rather it be like more I don't know, closer to that.
Also,
so
earlier
Hulk
I
just
mentioned,
brutalizes Abomination
yeah,
and punches his skull off.
I was gonna say, I mentioned earlier how like
Yeah.
Quicksilver destroying Hurricane was ingrained into my brain my entire life. The first time I read that, the image of Hulk ripping Abomination's arms off from like a long POV in the shadows, and the bottom image being a very big close up of Hulk just punching, like he literally punches through his mouth.
Through his mouth, yeah.
Yeah, like it was two like the most brutal moves on the same page and done in two different ways. Where like the first image is him ripping his arms off. You can see the blood and tendons and stuff. Like
he's also saying this is the third time or fourth time he said, "Ben or no, please."
Yeah,
like my arms are ripped off now.
So here we get our first attempt at Hank trying to use Ultron as an alibi that he wasn't evil. Because so Hank sees that the tide is turning, and so he starts saying Ultron like, "Oh wait, Ultron bots, start helping civilians." And the Ultron bots are like, "Wait, what?" And then Hank tells Pietro like, "Oh yeah, no, I was a sleeper agent. Like I'm on your side, right, Ultron?" And Ultron's just like, "Whatever you say, Doctor." Like,
I love he
unreal.
just goes, yes, definitely, but make sure you help the Ultimates, Ultron. It's time he goes, it's time we let them realize we were infiltrating the Liberators.
And Ultron's answer is, what? Seriously?
It seems so false. Stop wasting time, robot.
Ultron answers, quote unquote, what? Seriously? And then Hank's just like, don't waste time, do it.
A fucking robot is like, seriously, bro?
Yeah. It's
for real? That's not what you told me earlier.
The way the Colonel was defeated, like, I didn't remember that the Hulk, like,
I did remember
the
it.
shield and chopped off his hands. And,
but it wasn't. It was Hulk and Hawkeye through the shield. It was almost like they combined Hawkeye's accuracy with the Hulk's strength.
Yeah.
Like it didn't make no sense. And then Abdul's arms are just chopped off, leaving him to be easy pickings.
Would it have made more sense if like Hulk was like holding Hawkeye's legs and just swung him around at super speed while he let go of the shield?
Or just have
accuracy wise, because it seems like they're throwing it literally together, which is like, how do you throw a frisbee with another person?
I don't know.
Like it makes zero sense.
Anyway, so Colonel was about to chop off his head somehow with the lightsaber
with a fake lightsaber, a fluorescent light bulb, but then his hands get chopped off, and Captain America says, "Hands off, creeps!"
Yeah. And then Captain America, of course, just murders the man.
Here's an interesting thing, though. Okay, because the guy
extrajudiciously murders the man.
Abdul is about to die, and he says, "What? Well, Captain, what now? Eh? One of your John Wayne quips? Is this where you crack a joke? Is this where you finish me with a witty barb?" And he doesn't do that. He just stone cold murders him. But if you remember, Captain America was like dropping jokes left and right when he was fighting the alien Skrulls. Like he didn't see Abdul, like he saw him as a bigger threat kind of than the fucking
as in like
Skrull
I can't give you my normal bullshit because this is more serious than the time that aliens almost took over our entire planet and then just destroyed the Earth on a whim.
I don't know if Millar was trying to do a callback to the "this A doesn't stand for France" joke, like how big of a joke that was.
I think that's what it is. Like like on the surface, it reads as like horrible. Like it's like, why did he consider this man like a greater threat than the aliens? I think it's just a meta comment on Captain America doesn't always do that shit, and sometimes he's just down for business or whatever, like or whatever the fuck. Like it seems like a Millar moment and less of like a true to character.
I mean, but I think it was a little bit of a callback to sort of like, well, you usually have a quip, so what is it this time? And he's just like, what? You're dead.
And he's just like, I don't have one. You're done.
Did Captain America just pass the Makomori test?
I don't think so.
Is he a female?
So. Is he different than he was at the beginning of this, really?
Well, because he used to tell jokes, and now he doesn't tell jokes.
Oh, did he grow as a human? Yeah, sure, maybe.
I think he's still a sexy lamppost, honestly. I'm not sure he's a Makomori.
Is he a sexy lamppost?
All right. We get Also, a big old panel of the X-Men and Fantastic Four doing things,
which I
is
appreciated.
exciting. And now, though, it gets real because Loki. So now we get to the point to where Loki says, like, "All right, forget this shit. I got to get involved because like all my liberators are dead. I got to start doing things." So he starts summoning insanity, and then he starts talking shit to the Scarlet Witch, which he
All right,
maybe
so
shouldn't have.
before we get into like the nitty gritty details of what Loki's doing and why it's happening, as a story, once they've like thoroughly defeated the Liberators, did you need this? Like, is the scale of this almost too big?
Well, that's kind of like going back to the earlier conversation because issue 12 came out 8 months before this issue. Like, issue 13 is just like a throwdown between Thor and Loki. Like, the story ended with issue 12, and this was like a
Yeah.
weird side story.
13 is kind of like,
Yeah, 13
let's
is
throw a shitload of stuff more into the story and then also wrap the story up. Like,
Yeah.
it was like, what? Like,
yeah.
I don't
weird.
think it's bad
13
because
is
Loki was a
the-
huge part of this arc as a whole. So I don't like. I mean, he destabilized the team from day one. I get it. Like, I understand all of this, but like, it seems it's like having two climaxes to a movie. You know, like you're just like the fight's done. Like, why are we still watching fight? And I don't hate it because it's awesome as fuck. But at the same time, you're just like, wow, this seems like a lot. You know, like I almost
they
forgot
could've,
about all this.
like,
They could have planned it better because it's like 12 is the climax of the series, and 13 is the resolution with still some fight, right? Still some like half a climax in 13 for no reason, but when 12 was real.
But it's also like over the top crazy fight. It's not just like
it gets insane, yeah.
yeah. It's not just like oh now let's fight Loki also and end the fight for real. It's like let's fight Loki also and then yet another giant horde of an army, and then suddenly we have a giant horde of an army, and like it just feels like you could have just let. I would have been good with an issue of just Loki fighting Thor. You know, and then
not
that
even.
would have been
I would have been okay with just Loki talking a bunch of shit.
Well, I want the redemption of Thor. Like, I
up.
do want that. Like, as a reader, I want Thor redeemed. Like, I want Thor to come back and be like, "Fuck you, lightning!" You know, like I want that moment. But like, do you need all this around it?
But that's what I mean. I would have been okay with just Loki talking all his shit, and then Thor just appearing and smashing him, and then that's it.
Yeah,
that's the fight.
I don't
know. I think at the time you had to keep in mind that, like, we've spoken about how Millar really teased the fact that is Thor crazy or not, like, so well.
Yeah, so
even a few issues ago, Thor disappears from his cell, and there's a rainbow there, so you're assuming it's Odin, but, like, who the fuck knows? He still could be crazy. So I think with this last issue was, you've had every Ultimate take down their evil versions of themselves. So they've each had their moment. So this is like Thor's moment with Loki, but also just like firmly establishing that Thor was not crazy.
Thor,
he is Thor. Like all the other characters see everything.
Because we had that for Cap. Like, I'm not a traitor. I'm in jail. Like, like we had that with Hawkeye. Like, I've escaped. Like, my family's dead. I've ridiculously murdered people to avenge their deaths. Like, you know, like we've gotten those moments, but like with Thor, I would not have been satisfied with Thor just coming down and smacking Loki in the head. Like I need something.
Like, but yeah.
Well, the one thing about this issue that stuck with me is just because, again, we talked about the delay between this issue and 13. So that final sort of repartee between Loki and Scarlet Witch, and Loki talking shit of like, well, what are you going to do? And Scarlet Witch says, oh, I don't know, increase the odds of someone showing up to kick your ass. And then the next panel is just lightning striking the Washington Monument and around, and Loki just saying, oh no. And then the next page is Thor is back. And I just remember that whole sequence really stuck with me because, again, we had like 8 months until issue 13 came out.
Yeah.
So
I also remember
really
going like,
stuck with me.
So you got your powers back and your hair grew really long?
Yes.
Anyway.
So we've kind of just talked about how issue 13 is just a huge fight, but my big thing is I really loved the choice that Hitch made with the Rainbow Bridge, because everything is super hyper realistic, but the Rainbow Bridge looks like he did it with like broad, basic paint brushstrokes. It's like very cartoonish. But then when it flashes to the actual Vikings coming out of the rainbow, it's like hyper realistic again. So I just thought that was a super cute little way of doing that.
So issue 13, Independence Day, ID 4. Let's talk about it. Man, like this page, for example, not good art. Like look at Captain America in the background. And this is the kind of hero shot of Thor smashing Loki.
But if you look
at
Loki's
not
body,
very good art.
Loki's body is demolished.
Well, yeah. I mean, he just got hammered. He just got crushed and hammered.
I agree. Cap's expression. He's watching two Norse gods fight, and Cap is basically expressionless. Maybe
that one. The rest of the issue has decent art, but there's a few pages that stand out kind of iffy. But after Thor smashes Loki, Loki summons. I guess that's supposed to be Jormungandr or whatever, isn't it? The giant snake. And then evil hordes of trolls and giant wolves. Like it's kind of like Ragnarok happening in DC. Thor brings his own Rainbow Warriors into the mix, which Patrick already mentioned. And then we get another like giant. That's what I mean with some of this feels redundant to issue 12 because now we have another giant brawl, even though we just saw a giant brawl, but now there's also magical Norsemen involved. But here we do get the 8-page splash of all the different brawls.
I have to say though, like I don't think at the time I found it repetitive because it had been so long since the last issue. But when you read it back to back and you actually have the time to like, the issues are already done and I'm just reading it in this hardback volume, you're kind of going like, wow, this is like a lot of repetitive like action climate. Yeah, like didn't we just have a giant fight? But I mean, again, like I don't think I would have been satisfied with like a short fight between Loki and Thor. Like I'm glad that it was insane and huge. I really did like the quick little like, you're still crazy, and he's like, well then why am I soaking wet, Loki? You know, like kind of thing like that. Those moments were really cool, like the quick flashes of like, this is all in your head, Thor, you're crazy, you know, kind of thing.
I liked as Thor was just beating the shit out of Loki, he's saying like, well, you have to admit, like, I was pretty clever, right? Did you notice how I did this and that?
But did you like it? But did you like it?
Murdered.
Yeah, he's like, they're fighting to the death, and he's still going like, but it was pretty cool, right? Like the way I tricked everyone.
You have to admit. Yeah, he was like, Norway's not even in the European Union. He's just like, you have to admit, like, oh, this is clever. And Thor's just beating the shit out of him as he's talking about it. It was pretty great.
And Patty, to your point, the art of the Rainbow Bridge is insane and ridiculous, and I don't think it's ever looked good in comics. That is, but and the swash of it flying through the air is insane. But when you do see the actual imagery of the like the Norse Asgardians, and it's just rainbow-ish colors in the background as in a close-up, it makes it go, oh, okay, well now it makes sense. But
which
yeah,
is
like
the kind of look they went with the MCU bridge,
right?
I do like
the MCU actually nailed the Rainbow Bridge. It's a ridiculous idea, and they made it look good for the first time ever, basically. And I think that one panel of the close up of the Norse gods emerging out of it is probably the only time it's ever made sense.
Yeah, but so they do. So anyway, he smashes Loki. I do want to mention. Did anybody else like? Sense a little something between Janet and Thor here? She's the first one to come up to him and say, oh my God, we thought you were insane. It's all true. Little kiss on the cheek. I don't know.
She kind of always had that kind of, I think she's got a bit of a crush on him, but he's not very interested.
Yeah.
When does that
happen?
You're at the very end. Okay, I haven't even opened up my 8-page.
No, I'm saying I think there was a little something going on.
I still got to open up my 8-page spread, Al.
No, I think there was a little something going on between her and Thor, but he only has eyes for that hippie protester Natalie Portman, Jane Foster person.
You mean Jane Foster? Can we just just the idea of printing 8 full pages that fold out was like unheard of.
Yeah.
And the fact that
It
he
wasn't
drew
8.
it and they somehow did it.
So it was like
it was
3,
8
right?
pages. It was 8.
No, it's
'cause
8.
I was
It's 8
I was
pages.
reading the actual issue.
It was a full
and it's 8.
Yeah, it's 8 pages wide. One side folds out, it's 4 wide. The other side folds out, it's 4 wide. It's 8 pages that fold out completely.
See, I was reading it digitally. I can't
Let me just show you, Al.
just
Doing
recreate
it.
that.
I
There
can't
it
even
is.
show
Yeah,
you.
there it is.
What?
It's honestly though it's not only is it impressive to draw that, although a lot of it's close up, so he's filling a lot of space with like really huge images of superheroes, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the backgrounds. But 8 fucking pages, that's insane. That's never been. I don't think it's ever been matched. I don't think. I could be wrong, but I don't think anyone's ever done anything this big before. Also, the one thing that I really want to call out for the 8-page spread is that it highlights each of the characters kind of in turn as you unfold and keep going, and it's one giant picture, and like Thor's on one, and even Nick Fury is kind of highlighted on one, even though he's small, and Janet and Wanda and Hawkeye, and they're all fighting. But throughout the entire thing, it's Quicksilver on every page.
Yeah.
Just beating the shit out of whatever he can beat the shit out of throughout the entire 8-page spread. And I'm like, I fucking love that. It's just like, it just keeps
good.
highlighting Quicksilver
He
doing
is the
stuff throughout.
MVP. Yeah,
He is the
Quicksilver is the
MVP of Ultimates 2. And I don't
is
think
the
we can
MVP.
hammer that home enough. That's all I'm
why
saying.
it was so disappointing that he died. Like, I kept waiting for them to bring him back in the MCU, and he just died in the most pathetic way possible.
It's ridiculous. They're like, let's get the speedster guy out of here. And they're like, why? Why? Oh.
I mean, nobody, even the MCU, I think, doesn't recognize Ultron as having happened. I think they're just trying to forget that movie existed. So it's just all gone.
This is carping back way far, but I was saving the political stuff to the end because I don't know if I feel comfortable talking about it all, but there's a moment where Swarm makes a comment about free elections in the United States.
Oh, I was going to bring that up. Exactly. Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, what? It's like,
Are they?
like she says,
Is Mark Millar is he reading the future?
Yeah, that was in issue 10. Yeah, she makes an election legitimacy comment. Although, I mean, I think this was written in the context of the 2000 election, which was decided by 9 Supreme Court judges and not the American people.
right.
But
Yeah.
we've since had like the whole Stop the Steal thing and other election legitimacy things. So yeah, it was very prescient given where elections have gone since then.
Or just the impression of elections. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I think this specifically was written more with the 2000 election in mind.
Al, based on your satire at the beginning of every episode, I'm not sure anybody knows where we lie in the political spectrum. Anyway.
You got to keep them guessing. One thing I want to mention, I love that the team just like celebrates their victory with some beers on the steps of the Capitol or whatever. Although that was fun. Again,
Carpe diem.
Janet just all up on Thor. Look at that. Leaning on him, I mean, also Betty draping a shirt over Bruce as if she hasn't been fucking Nick for the past 2 months.
She hasn't been. I'm on Betty's side.
I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting of Betty.
I have to go
And then
back 2 pages. I have to go back 2 pages. She was
Well,
brilliant, wasn't she? I gave her that formula for emergencies, and she just handled herself perfectly. I was so proud of you, honey. We all are. Don't you try to weasel out of this now, Pim. You aided and abetted foreign terrorists, and your ass is going to jail. And then
Absolutely.
Thor, out of all people
Thor
in the
just
background,
says absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thor saying absolutely just crushed it. It was so fucking funny.
And then Iron Man flies down and says, "Anyone fancy a little rumpy pumpy back at my place tonight?"
Yeah,
that
don't you know what a
Rumpy?
rumpy pump is? Yeah.
Rumpy pumpy. I don't know if this was a reference to like.
Listen, he's probably pretty loaded at this point. I'm just going to I mean, like, the things that come out of his mouth,
Yeah,
He's
well, I don't know
drunk.
if you guys are aware, but so former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi, who's another rich person, was known for having bunga bunga parties.
Rumpy pumpy parties?
So I don't know if
a
Rumpy
bunga.
Pumpy is like a reference to like Italian rich prime ministers and their bunga bunga parties, but Tony wanted a little Rumpy Pumpy, so that's interesting.
Patty, what were you saying about Janet and Thor? We kind of talked over it because I feel like you had like a comment and I feel like I lost it.
I just kind of
She's
feel like
into him.
it's one of those relationships where Thor is not a gay man, but it's like he's a god, so like he's not interested. Like this woman,
Okay.
I feel like Janet is like the woman who thinks she can turn a gay guy.
Yeah, because I
straight.
didn't. So that, and that's why I wanted to revisit that comment because like I didn't get that impression either, and I don't know if I had your perspective on it, but like that
But it's like
that
Janet
illustrates it
knows
well.
that-
I think.
like Janet knows that it's not a possibility, but like it's like almost like an inside
Okay, yeah.
joke.
So again, so I feel like I was there with you, but I didn't know how to say it. That's why I was like, hey, what were you
will
saying?
stress, Patrick, just now you offhandedly made a comment. Thor's not gay. So, overly preoccupied with how his father sees him, rides a rainbow bridge. Are we sure he's not gay? That's all I wanted to mention.
If he is,
Daddy?
he's Disney gay, and you'll never see him kiss another man, probably.
Yeah, but also we haven't seen him kiss Jane in this comic either.
No,
We
that's
have.
true. I don't know.
Oh, so
actually,
they were just scared to tell us. They were just scared to
I
tell
don't
us.
know.
I mean, he might be bi, yeah.
I mean, if you live for like a
He's a hip-
thousands and thousands of years, I mean, like
Yeah.
just anything goes. I think
he's in with
right?
these like pro-environment hippie people. Yeah, he could be bi or who knows what.
There it is. And then we flash to Hawkeye getting his revenge on Natasha.
Well, so one thing I wanted to bring up is so I'd kind of forgotten, but and it's weird because given how the MCU did this, but so Natasha in this is straight up evil and like gets
Yeah, they
murdered
really
and
obviously
is the bad guy.
Obviously,
Yeah.
the MCU went more traditional Marvel comics in
Yeah,
terms
she's
of
the
Natasha.
hero, right?
Yeah, she's
but
the
in
hero.
this,
yeah.
but in this, she legit like gets murdered by Hawkeye and is evil.
I thought it was so in terms of the Ultimate Comics being like free from like bullshit, all the bullshit that came before, like all the continuity that came before in the MCU or the Marvel Comics continuity, like, and the Ultimates has like a free pass to kind of do whatever the fuck they want, kind of thing, and I truly enjoyed that. Like, do I want Black Widow to be that normally? No. So I'm glad they changed it for the MCU. But like at the same time, like her reasoning of like, yeah, I'm a Russian spy. Like, why are you even surprised by this? Like, it's that thought process is like makes so much fucking sense. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
Like, kind of thing. Like, I'm a Russian super soldier. I'm a fucking like I'm from Russia. Like, what do you? I'm suddenly fighting for America. Like, come on. I don't know. I thought that was really cool. It was a weird, realistic take on her, and they needed a foil, and they used her, and it was great.
Yeah.
And yeah, she deserved it. She murdered children.
No, I mean
Yeah.
she's definitely evil in this, but it is just weird given mainstream continuity in the movies and how it's just kind of strange to think, oh right, no, there is no redemption. She's just
she's just pure evil.
She's
Yeah.
dead. No, yeah.
I mean, this version of her is so strongly imprinted in my brain that when they first introduced Natasha in like Iron Man 2, I was really curious to see how they were going to handle her.
Really?
In the MCU.
Oh, I was so firmly
she was just
embedded
gonna
in
be
like.
an American person with no discernible Russian origins to speak of, and that's just the character.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she got out. She made it across the wall. Now.
Did you see the Black Widow movie that they did?
I enjoyed it.
Everyone else related to that project, Russian accent, not Scarlett Johansson.
Well, because she's so deep undercover in the United
I'm sure
States.
that's why. I'm sure that's why. Yeah.
If they had
That's
kept her
definitely
alive
why.
in the MCU, eventually she would have betrayed the team. That's what I like to think. Just suddenly shit got cosmic, And suddenly it was like less about national borders and more about like humanity. And she became a good guy.
All right, so heading towards wrapping this up. So after Hawkeye, then we get a scene of Tony again just being complete just garbage. So he talks to Pepper about how he's going to take over the Avengers and it'll be good business. So good for him. He's going to get
But he
more
also
money out of this.
he sheds a tear, Al.
I'm getting to that. So he sheds a tear that Pepper tries to assuage his sadness, and he just brushes her off because he found a hot blonde in the street that he's going to go after. And then he says something like, "Clear my calendar for the next month." Like he's just going to take off from his work and responsibilities for a month.
That's what rich people do.
He's awful. He's the worst. He is garbage. He's a garbage man. He's a garbage man.
But not in the sense that he literally cleans up garbage.
No, in the sense that he is a piece of shit.
Because those are probably good people.
Yeah. He is a horrible person.
He's a horrible human being.
Yeah, and so he just ditches Pepper to run his company or whatever for the next month while he goes, fuck this blonde person. And then we get a little conjugal visit.
Maybe.
Janet and Hank in the Triskelion.
I love the so do we all spend a little time in these cells? Like just like that little note of like I've been down here, Thor's been down here, Hulk has been down here. Like,
Bruce,
just like, yeah.
The end of it all, a nice little capstone. We get a flashback to 1942. Brooklyn, 1942. Captain America, Steve Rogers, walking the streets with his girlfriend, about to ship off to support our troops in the European front.
Promise you'll come home.
Yeah.
I promise. Really? I promised, didn't I? Well, we'll be waiting. The epilogues all worked well. I was almost in tears when I wrote them because it was really a goodbye to these characters. For a long time, anyway. The only one that really made me smile was the Tony one.
Jesus.
The Hawkeye piece was very satisfying because we really, really wanted to see the Widow get it in the neck. But the Tony piece looked so sad for a moment and then just snapped Tony straight back into character when he saw that new blonde.
Oh my God.
I probably relate to Tony more than any of the other characters.
Oh my God.
I love the fact that they're playing him like this in the movie. I hate seeing Tony tortured. He should embrace his shallowness and revel in his booze.
Okay.
Then Bryan Hitch says,
Okay.
Yeah, as fun as all that action was, I'd been drawing fight scenes for 6 months, but then I craved the smaller stuff. The Hawkeye scene was my favorite in the whole book and absolutely satisfying. We had the epilogue worked out 5 years ago, didn't we? So much changed as we were doing the book. We made up new stuff every day and scrapped so much as the times around us changed, too. But a couple little things remained, and this ending, set prior to the opening scene from the first volume, was something we wanted to do right from the start. I don't know if I told you this, but I nicked the idea from the first 2 Godfather movies. Coppola didn't know how to end the second one without everyone being on a downer. And so he said it before the first scene in the first movie when everyone was very hopeful and innocent. It thus makes you feel happy because it ends on a high with everyone on a high. But it's sad too because you know absolutely everything that awaits them. And all good stories should end with a kiss, right?
Oh, that's cool. Actually, I didn't think about the Godfather 2 ending, but that is that's neat.
Yeah.
How that kind of informed this, yeah. Because it was
Bryan
kind of a
Hitch then
similar,
said, "My lips are
flashback
yours,
to-
chum."
Okay.
Making it weird.
Interesting. I never really liked Gale because she makes that comment in Ultimates 1 about how the Ultimates are better than those like nasty mutants, and like it really that really.
Well, she's
stuck
an
with
old
me,
racist
so-
woman.
Yeah,
I couldn't
she's an
ever.
old racist.
She's
really,
racist. Yeah.
Really get past that part with her.
Look, old people are awful. She's one of them.
Indubitably.
Old people
All right.
are awful. That's the end of this book.
Oh, wait a minute. Are you hearing this? Like, is it just
I don't
my
hear it.
headphones?
I don't hear
'Cause
it. I need
this-
to hear it.
Does this pass the Bechdel test? The Bechdel test, the Bechdel test. Did this pass the Bechdel test? The answer's probably no. It didn't.
It did.
Ultimates 2, none of the 13 issues of Ultimates 2 passed the Bechdel test.
It didn't, yeah.
None of them.
Yeah, I guess it would.
Solid
I
fail.
can't think of any.
I mean, it's an ensemble cast, but
I mean,
no.
Millar and Hitch, though, you got to do better. You got to do better than this. You don't even sniff a pass.
I don't even think it passed the Makomori test anywhere. Like
They didn't pass any of them really.
I don't think
kind of goes backwards. And Wanda, I guess she learns how to use her powers a little bit better, but character development wise goes nowhere.
And Betty,
Wanda's got nothing.
Betty has a bevy of problems that she didn't solve none of them in any of this.
Well, Natasha, I guess her character took a turn. I don't know if that's a
to death. Does death count as character
growth?
No,
she had a giant reveal and she shifted her character, but that's not. I don't know. A twist ending where she's a bad guy all along doesn't feel like a character.
That's not character growth. Yeah. No, this doesn't. Yeah. This fails all the tests basically. It doesn't.
Except for the Snyder Zeus test, it doesn't completely fail that.
We got some
Abdul's
registers.
definitely a 5. Is he an 8? Are you out of your mind? No.
Okay, but we had some people register on the Snyder Zeus.
I think he's a 4.
No, all right. So final thoughts. So Ultimates 2, I'll just say loved it. I mean, this episode we didn't really talk as much about the commentary of the time and everything, but I just thought it was spot on. Like the description, the kind of the equating superheroes with weapons of mass destructions and nations' armaments, and using that theme and exploring, preemptive strikes in the Middle East and all of that was going on in 2003, worked at 2000, I guess 5 to 7, worked at the time. A lot of the commentary is also weirdly topical now. America is still doing things abroad. We still have election shenanigans and mistrust of elections going on now. So a lot of the political things that this comic brought up are weirdly very of the times now. Yeah. And I just really enjoyed the reread much more than Ultimates 1. Ultimates 2, the commentary was awesome. The characters were more developed. The narrative built up the tension and towards the climax better. Great comic. And it still holds up and I still recommend it. I enjoyed it. Again, even though something we talked about, rereading it now as a more mature adult, some of the relationships, especially between men and women, are problematic. And in a way that I didn't quite get as like a 20-year-old reading it, but now really gives you a lot more to chew on, sort of, and think about.
Sure, yeah. And it almost adds depth to the story.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean it positively.
Not necessarily in a good way, but
No, but I do mean it positively in terms of the narrative. I think it built characters and relationships that were much more thought-provoking than I originally thought in 2005.
Yeah.
And reading it now, there's kind of a lot more going on and a lot more to think about and digest than at the time. But really loved it, recommend it, thumb up from my end on Ultimates 2.
So one recommend from Al. It's a full hearty recommend from me. Thumbs up. The art's astoundingly good. Even when he gets, as Al was sort of saying in issue 13, like as it weighs on him and he's phoning it in, quote unquote, so to speak, in certain panels or certain pages, Bryan Hitch's artwork is astoundingly good. And like I would read a million comics written or drawn by him, but sadly he doesn't do much anymore, or doesn't do as much anymore, because it's probably too much for him to do on his level of quality that he likes to produce. But so again, Ultimates 2, fantastic. Love every second of it. Even all of its downs and all of its ups outweigh itself and comes out on the other end as a great fucking book. I look back at Ultimates 2 and I think it jaded my perspective of Ultimates 1 to the point where I'm like, all of Ultimates is amazing. I just go like, but really what I think is it comes down to Ultimates 2 being a solid fucking book and so good. Such a good reread. Does it need 2 climaxes? I don't know.
I thumbs up all the way. I agree with everything y'all just said. And Quicksilver, Pietro Maximoff, like
Yeah.
one of the I can't describe because he's a secondary character in this book, but he is so like every moment he has is just fucking awesome. Thumbs up.
That's a 3 thumbs up from the Mobius Couch and Ultimates 2.
All right, people of the world, thanks for listening. That was the Mobius Couch on Ultimates 2. See you next time. Bye.
Good journey.
What the fuck?
My voice cracked. I was gonna say good journey, everyone.
Bye, everybody. I'm Joe. See you later. That's been the Mobius Couch.